Okie dokie. Welcome, 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 one and all, to yet another episode of Wick TV. And it's a very special episode because it's my birthday episode. I've survived on this earth for 42 years, 42 long revolutions around the sun. And gang, I gotta tell you, it feels great. So to celebrate my birthday, I wanted to get away from the slop, from the drama slop for a while. Okay, I wanted at least one day free of that. So we're going to be talking about effective altruism and the Shrimp Welfare Project. What is effective altruism? How does it relate to the Shrimp Welfare Project? Does it at all? What is the Shrimp Welfare Project? And why is it something we should even care about? Or should we? We got a great lineup today. Great guests. I'm going to give the mic to them, and they're going to, tell you who they are, what they think, and we'll get it on. Eucharist, you're starting us off. Here's the mic. Go ahead.
Well, this is unfortunate because I've just realized my main mic is not working. Thankfully, I had a Yeti sitting on standby to come. Okay. All right. Yeah, I think fundamentally the debate is going to be about the fact that most people find shrimp welfare very silly. And that's not an argument, but it is an important thing for the defenders of shrimp welfare to get past. And so I'm looking forward to hearing good arguments for why we should think it's not silly. I'm most interested, though, in sort of the, let's say, the emotive consequences of this. Like, what world could I imagine, 100 years from now, if I'm sufficiently convinced tonight that I should care about the shrimp, what should my emotional state be 100 years from now toward shrimp? Should I just wake up every morning and stay awake at night, like, incredibly distressed about the plight of shrimp? I'll be interested to see about that. I have a lot of random arguments and assorted quotes to blogs by people on this panel. But yeah, if I'm keeping it short, I think it's silly, and I look forward to being convinced otherwise. Thanks.
Okay, we got one for Team Silly. Thanks for being here. Always a pleasure to have you, Eucharist. We'll get into it as we go. Next, we're going to give the mic to Ryan C. Mullally. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Ryan. If you know me, you probably know me from arguing law and politics, but I also philosophy bro, so I can be the worst person ever, both lawyer and philosopher bro. And that's what we're going to do here tonight. I think the Shrimp Welfare Project is inherently silly, and that's not because I hate shrimp. I nothing shrimp, and I think that's the right attitude to have towards shrimp. To me, this seems like an outgrowth of a kind of bastardized utilitarianism that has become very prevalent in our civic discourse. And that's what I'm hoping to attack tonight because I don't think it has legs to stand on.
Okay. Thank you for being here. We're going to see how many shrimp legs you can knock out tonight, and we'll get into it. Next up, the Shrimp Welfare Project's strongest defender that I've ever seen, Nonfon. Go ahead.
You can't say that with Matthew in the room. Goddamn.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm non-fun. Usually, I stream more about like economics and politics generally. So with regards to the Shrimp Welfare Project, I think like as long as you accept that we should have at least some minimum consideration for the suffering of animals, and that the Shrimp Welfare Project is just really effective at reducing shrimp suffering, like you should think it's at least a good charity to donate to, even if you don't think we have any like obligation to donate to it, right? And with regards to effective altruism more general, I think, the sort of broadest definition of it is like almost obviously true. Like insofar as you have an obligation or it's even just a good thing to act charitably, you should probably try to maximize the sort of returns that you get from doing that. And I think the Shrimp Welfare Project is a really good way to do that.
Hey, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. Next up, first time guest on my channel, hopefully not last. We'll see how this goes. We got Matthew here. Go ahead, Matthew. Tell people who you are, what you do, and what are your thoughts?
Yeah, thanks. So my name is Matthew. I write the blog Bentham's Bulldog, which you should all check out immediately. My basic argument is quite simple, and it doesn't assume utilitarianism or anything very controversial. Imagine that there were 15,000 shrimp about to be slowly and painfully killed in front of you, either frozen and suffocated to death, or maybe just suffocated, or maybe crushed to death under many other shrimp. It would be good to spend $1 to stop all of this death and suffering. But every dollar given to the Shrimp Welfare Project makes painless about 15,000 deaths and anesthetizes about 15,000 shrimps before death. So if it would be good to spend the money in the case I just gave, then it's good to give money to the Shrimp Welfare Project. The reason this is a good use of money is that painful deaths are bad. It's bad to experience intense agony. If you can prevent a mind-bogglingly large amount of a bad thing from happening by spending $1, it's a good use of $1. So that's the basic case for shrimp welfare. Excited to discuss this more.
Okay. Why shouldn't we care about that? What's wrong with that, Eucharist and Ryan? If you got $1 and you could stop 15,000 shrimp from feeling pain, why is that silly?
Yeah, I guess I'm in a weird spot because for I think different reasons than the other two pro shrimp people here, probably agree with some of the conclusions. At the very least, like I think it's bad for people to torture animals. And so that's the people who are torturing shrimp are doing a bad thing. Y'all can go read the Bentham's Bulldog Substack for some very vivid descriptions of what it's like to die as a shrimp. Doesn't sound super fun, right? So one of the main issues I run into mentally, ethically, morally, spiritually, whatever, is sort of the calculation to arrive at that conclusion that then brings with it some kinds of obligations or responsibilities, which is I have yet to be convinced. Even I love. By the way, I want to say I love reading the Benthos Bulldog Substack. He's right. You should check it out. And my favorite thing about it is that it really, really triggers Lyman Stone. It's really fun to watch him get real mad on the internet. So that's my favorite thing about it. I have yet to be convinced. Yeah, amazing. That's beautiful. I like him a lot too.
Maximize his suffering. Let's go. Anyway.
It's fun to watch the back and forth. But I've yet to be convinced, I guess, that pain and suffering are species fungible in the way that the math presented suggests to me it is. And so that's what I think most looking forward to talking about tonight. Yeah, so that would be my thing, is like the math doesn't math to me because I don't think that pain and suffering are species fungible in a way that gives me any sort of particular care for shrimp suffering over human suffering particularly, or the suffering of other animals.
Sorry,
I would pick up on what Eucharist said. I think before you get into whether something is good and using the more technical sense that you ought to do it because it's a good thing to do, we would need to establish that shrimp have moral worth, that they are either moral agents or moral patients. And I don't think they're either. And, when I go in my backyard and there are ants that are irritating me and I poison them with various pesticides, I'm not concerned about their welfare. It's not a thing that enters my mind, nor should it, because I don't think they have moral significance in that way. Now, there's different cases where people's relationships with animals can create a moral relationship and can create moral obligations. But in the abstract, I just don't think I have any. Now, if you're using the word good in a more colloquial sense, like not in terms of moral obligation, but just like, okay, like there's a guy, he gave $1 to the Shrimp Welfare Project, thumbs up. Okay, sure. Like, I mean, I can, that could be emotively good or have some kind of warm fuzzy attached to it. But in terms of a moral prescription, I just don't think there's any moral obligation there.
Yeah, so I guess I think...
Go ahead, Matthew, please.
So I think it's important to distinguish between the things that are morally obligatory and the things that are good. It's a good thing to do to call your mother on her birthday, but presumably it's not morally obligatory. The thing I want to convince you of is that this is a good use of spending money if you're interested in making the world a better place. This is one of the places that you should seriously consider. Now, Eucharist, you were suggesting that you weren't sure if the badness of pain was species fungible. I'm not sure if you were doubting that shrimp feel pain, or you were doubting that shrimp feel pain and that matters, or both.
Probably the second of those three options. That I feel like I'm sufficiently convinced by the sorts of things you outline, like their apparent aversion to pain, their ability to get addicted to various substances when we offer to them, all those sorts of things. Fairly sufficiently convinced that they feel some kind of pain. The thing I need to be convinced of, I guess, is that I should care about shrimp pain as a sort of percentage unit of human pain, right? So yeah, if you want to go with that, there are other intuitions in the background here, but yeah.
Sure. So I guess here's kind of my basic view on this. I think it's bad to feel intense pain. And if I think about why it's bad to feel intense pain, like if I think about times when I've been in really intense pain and I think about what's bad about it, when I'm like, oh, what's bad about having a really bad headache? The answer does not seem to be, well, I'm biologically Homo sapien, nor does the answer seem to be, well, I got a high SAT score or anything. It seems to be, it's bad because it hurts, It's bad to feel really bad for an extended period of time. It's bad to slowly suffocate to death. And so if there's good evidence that shrimp can feel fairly intense pain, that shrimp can feel things that feel really bad that you wouldn't want to happen to you, and you can prevent tens of thousands of instances of these things happening by spending $1, this seems pretty good. I don't actually think this is that unintuitive of a notion. Like, a lot of people are pretty queasy about the idea of boiling a lobster in a pot. It's been banned in various places in Europe. And so if you think it's bad when lobsters are boiled in pots, you should think it's bad when shrimp are slowly suffocated to death. And, then if it's bad when shrimp are slowly suffocated to death, it's worth spending $1 to make it so that tens of thousands of their deaths are painless.
I mean, that's similar. It's like, something I wanted to ask is like, we have a lot of other like humane slaughter initiatives for some of them are even like mandated, right? Like it's mandated that you kill cows in a relatively humane way via like stunners, right? And I guess I would just ask, like, I'm very curious for Ryan. Like, do we think that is justified? Do we think those are good laws?
I don't have strong feelings about those laws one way or the other, to be honest with you. I do think that humans can develop moral obligations to animals based on their relationship with the animals. I don't think cows are particularly fungible with shrimp in terms of their complexity. And I think that there's kind of an odd undercurrent here, which is that it's good to reduce suffering regardless of its form in any and all instances, which I guess I would like to probe a little bit, because I don't understand what the prescription is. Like, there's plenty of cases, I'm sure, that we could bring up where you guys are more or less fine with suffering for a variety of reasons. So, why is shrimp particularly noteworthy of all things?
So sorry, go ahead, Don.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, like, it's not that like shrimp are particularly noteworthy, in terms of like their suffering is like more important, right? Like, me and Matthew, I think both agree that like, pain is bad because it hurts, right? It doesn't depend on the intelligence of the sufferer or anything like that. So, the big thing with shrimp is just like the scale at which they are killed, right? And the, sort of efficiency of the Shrimp Welfare Project at reducing that. So, it's something, it's like 400 billion like farm shrimp are like killed every year, right? Like that's an insane scale. Even if you think shrimp suffer like relatively minor compared to any other animal, really, like that's, because of this sheer scale, like the aggregate amount of suffering is really big, and because we can prevent that so cheaply, that is a like just generally really good thing to do.
But I guess the scaling thing is a little bit odd to me, because like if we were doing a suffering trolley problem, right? And on one side of the suffering trolley, it's not going to kill them, it's just going to hurt a lot, right? I had, my daughter, and the trolley was going to stub her toe, and she'd just be in pain, but she'd be fine. And on the other side, there'd be 15,000 shrimp who are really suffering because someone ripped out their eye stalks. This isn't a hard question for me. I'm going to avoid my daughter's suffering every single time because shrimp don't matter that much. And I just don't see how we're getting around that. Like, the numbers can get big, but you still have to have some equivalency to human suffering in order for this to matter at all.
Okay, I want to give it to Matthew.
So presumably you agree that humans experiencing intense suffering is a bad thing. So I'm asking, what is it about shrimp that makes it so that their suffering is so morally insignificant compared to human suffering? Like, when I think about what's bad about feeling intense pain, it seems like at least a big part of it is it's bad to feel intense pain because it feels bad. If there are other creatures who can also feel intense pain, and that shrimp can suffer intensely, at least with decent probability, I think that's very likely. We can talk about reasons to think that, but your view seems to be, even if they can suffer intensely, like, that doesn't really matter. And so I'm just trying to understand, what is it about their pain that makes it so that their pain is tens of millions of times less significant than human pain?
I mean, I think everybody goes to the world and makes value judgments about which things they're going to care about and which things they don't. I mean, I'm going to ask you, I think it's a question that I think is maybe rhetorical, because I can guess, but I assume you're not pro-life, right?
I'm a little, I'm pretty uncertain about abortion.
Okay. So if you're not pro-life, right? And I'm not saying you should be, but if you're not pro-life and you're very worried about whether shrimp feel suffering, but less worried about whether fetuses feel suffering, that strikes me as a bizarre state of affairs. Not because you must be pro-life, I'm not making that prescription, but because there's so much human suffering in the world, but we're choosing to focus on shrimp suffering because the number of shrimp are big. But The number of shrimp are big. The number of ants are big. Who gives a shit? There's a lot of species, there's a lot of animals that are very numerous. If you can convince me that bacteria feel pain, I still I wouldn't care about them feeling pain. I have no moral intuition that I should care. I also do boil my lobsters alive, if that helps.
Okay, sorry. So just well, actually, I mean, to address the abortion case, I think there's a big difference between the abortion case. Like, abortion raises all sorts of complicated ethical considerations involving bodily autonomy, involving involving whether the fetus is conscious in the first place. I think at the early stages, it's pretty clear that the fetus is not conscious. Now, if there was an analog of the Shrimp Welfare Project for abortion, like if there was a charitable organization that for every dollar would make painless 15,000 abortions, where like they would be painless for the fetus at the stage at which the fetus feels pain, then I would think that was like a really good charity, because I think it's bad to feel bad. It's bad to feel really intense suffering, and I think that So if you could prevent very large amounts of bad things by spending $1, it's worth doing it. If you can help out millions of creatures by spending $100, it's worth doing it. But once again, I'm just trying to understand. So like, you agree human pain matters. You think shrimp pain doesn't matter. I'm trying to understand, what is it about shrimp that makes their pain not matter? Merely repeating that you don't think that shrimp pain matters doesn't that doesn't answer the question.
Yeah, and I mean, it depends how much philosophy, bro, you want to do here. I'm not a utilitarian.
All the philosophy, bro.
I'm a natural law theorist when it comes to ethics. I don't think shrimp have any natural rights. I think they are neither moral patients nor agents, so they do not impact my moral thinking. I'm sure I would grant you they suffer pain. I just don't think it has moral significance and therefore has no impact on my behavior.
I think you're not quite getting the question. Maybe I'm like, let me just be clear on sort of like what an answer to the question would look like. So I'm trying to understand, what is it about shrimp pain that you think makes it morally unimportant? So an example that a person might give, they might say, well, shrimp, they have like very limited intelligence. Okay, they're like not very smart. And so for that reason, I don't think we should take their suffering seriously, because, they're sort of like very stupid. That would be like one kind of answer to this, right? But I'm just trying to understand, just what is it about shrimp that makes you think that their welfare is utterly morally irrelevant? That makes you think that when they're thrashing about in agony, when they're
for that. And even if I was to adopt a utilitarian framework, right? And often when I do debate utilitarians, I'm debating secular humanists. And then when we talk about within utilitarianism, we talk about human flourishing is their metric. Well, let's adopt that for a moment. Shrimp suffering does not impact human flourishing. It just doesn't. You would need a metric that includes shrimp welfare to care about shrimp welfare.
So I'm not a secular humanist. At least, I think animals matter. Maybe it'll depend on exactly how the term is defined. And while I am a utilitarian, the thing that I'm arguing here is much more modest than utilitarianism, and it certainly doesn't assume utilitarianism. Utilitarianism makes a whole range of very controversial claims, like pleasure and well-being of conscious creatures is the only thing that matters. I'm not committed to any of that. All I'm arguing is that if you can prevent very, very, very large amounts of intense suffering by spending very small amounts of money, that's a pretty good use. If you could prevent 150 lobsters from experiencing the pain of being boiled by spending a penny, it would be a good use. Now, you were trying to explain. So I was asking you what it was about shrimp that that makes you think that their welfare doesn't matter. You sort of you kind of gestured in a few different directions. You said, they occupy they're developmentally simpler. Now, I want to know in more detail, like what you mean by developmental simplicity. Is it just that they have like simpler brains with fewer neurons? Because presumably, if we came across a human who could feel intense pain, but they had fewer neurons, you wouldn't say, oh, well, then they don't morally matter. So I just like if you're saying A matters but B doesn't matter, you should be able to point to some difference between A and B, where you say A matters because it has some property, but B doesn't have that property.
I'll make it as simple as I can. I'm not worried about gazelle sufferings when lions kill them either. Like, they occupy a completely different part of the food chain. They are prey animals for our species. We kill them and eat them. I am largely uninterested in how they feel about that.
Right. I'm quite clear that you don't think shrimp welfare matters, okay, and that you don't think that the welfare of a whole range of creatures matters. the thing that I'm trying to understand is, what is it about them that makes you think that their welfare is not morally important? It would be like, imagine
They
I
are
say,
our prey animals.
okay, there are prey animals, and by that, do you just mean that we in fact eat them?
I mean, we are an animal that occupies a place in the food chain, and they are our prey animals. Their welfare is not our primary concern,
Okay,
except to the extent that we make it our concern, or it impacts other humans.
So imagine a world where like we had prey animals that were like these intelligent agents, right? They were like full-on agents. They were smart. They had the ability to reason in all sorts of ways. They had the ability to feel intense pain. Would it be okay to torture them or to inflict large amounts of suffering on them for trivial reasons just because they were our prey?
What do you mean by okay? Do you mean like we have a moral obligation
Like, would it be
not
morally
to?
all right?
Yes.
Okay, wait, sorry. Just to be clear.
Wait,
So like, or sorry, yeah, no, I haven't sort of
it's okay.
dominated.
Finish
Not
your
my fault.
before
I
you
mean,
finish your
yeah,
thought
I
line.
was
Hold
gonna
on,
say,
just real
like-
quick. I gotta make a little money because my welfare is important. $5 from Zero Fucks to say happy birthday, Wick. Thank you. Also check Ryan's new video on originalism at his Natural Law with Ryan Mullally. Go check it out, gang. 10 Wick TV gift memberships from Libertarian Trap. Thank you. $20 from Malik to say happy birthday to my favorite Destiny apologist. I don't apologize for him. I attack him probably more than you do. 50 gift memberships from JMac. Thank you. 50. And then $50 from AKA Batozai to say happy birthday to you from me. So I guess a question to you guys on the Shrimp Welfare Project end. Have they done anything morally wrong by not giving that money to shrimp? How many shrimp could they have saved with that money that they did not?
Can I ask Ryan one question
Yes,
first before
you
we
can.
go around and
I'm
answer
just
that? Yeah.
really curious.
I mean, Ryan, it feels like, I guess I don't know exactly what you mean by food chain, but it feels like you would reject this argument if like some, hyper intelligent alien civilization came down and said, well, we clearly occupy like a higher place in the food chain than you. So, we're not going to have any moral consideration for any humans, and we're simply going to, enslave and eat them, right? Like that'd be, think you would reject that.
I mean, my ethics is human dependent. So in an alien attack situation, I'm on team human. They might not be. Like that's the way that these relationships work. I feel like we have enough concerns in our society other than shrimp welfare that warrant our attention. And yeah, I mean, if the aliens come down, they might not give a shit about us.
But sorry, there's a difference between the claim the aliens would not in fact care about us and the claim that the aliens have no moral reason to care about us. So my view would be, if the aliens, you had the like predator aliens that started like killing and eating us, that started tossing us by the thousands into these big things where we froze underwater, where we froze and suffocated to death. And then there was an alien charity called the Human Welfare Project, where they would anesthetize tens of thousands of humans per dollar that they were given. It would seem quite obvious that aliens giving to that charity was quite a morally righteous thing to do. That even if they were above us on the food chain, our welfare would still matter. The mere fact that we have the might to do something doesn't make it right for us to do that thing.
Well, the funny thing about this is that we're presupposing that my entire moral system is wrong. So in a world where my entire moral system is wrong, then yeah, I would imagine my moral system is wrong. But
sorry, why does imagining aliens that eat us presuppose your moral system is wrong?
Because as I was trying to allude to earlier, I'm a natural rights theorist. So the idea is that man was created by God with natural rights, with certain rights that form the basis of our moral obligations to each other. Aliens coming down and farming us by the tens of thousands would be pretty good evidence that I was wrong about that. To be totally clear.
Why is that evidence against natural law theory?
Because if humans are not in fact reflections of God's image and are in fact prey animals for aliens, that would strongly imply that we were wrong about a lot of the stuff we wrote in the Declaration of Independence when we talked about the unique human dignity of mankind. In fact,
there are in fact creatures that would eat us if given the opportunity. Okay, and so
they don't, and we have overcome them. The fact that they would like to eat us is very different than them actually occupying a higher rung on the food chain than us. I mean, I don't think, I imagine lion attacks don't rank high on your agenda.
No, but I guess, well, so I don't agree. Like, Yeah, I don't know why this would falsify natural law theory that there were things that ate us. That, like, in fact, there are lots of creatures that kill us very frequently. Bacteria and viruses. I don't see why having these like big aliens that harm us would be very different from that. It's old news that the world is filled with all sorts of horrendous evils.
You
But,
don't
yeah.
see why a more advanced species coming here and displacing us as the dominant species on Earth with their superior technology and intellect would maybe have an issue with the fact that we are in fact in some way made in God's image. That wouldn't strike you as a problem.
Because I don't think that us being made in God's image has much to do with where we're situated in the food chain. Like, presumably, when us being made in God's image doesn't mean that we eat other things, but they don't eat us. It has something to do with what the sorts of creatures we are. That we're creatures that are capable of rationality. I mean, I'm not a Christian, so right, there will be different interpretations of this. But like, I don't know, that seems like an utterly bizarre way of reading the made in the image of God bit. But
I mean,
But also, I mean, it kind
I
of
get Nonfon.
it kind of feels like
too. Go ahead.
Yeah, right. I don't know. It kind of feels like you've shifted again to just like, oh, and not that this wasn't like your original position, but you kind of let it, it said that the food chain was the thing that was responsible. But now it seems like you've just shifted to saying, it's basically solely whether you're made in the image of God is what, grants you moral consideration or not. Right. And I think that's.
No, what I'm saying is that whether or not you grant a moral agent or a moral patient moral consideration is a result of your moral system. If you are, and I gave the example earlier, a secular humanist, and your metric is utilitarianism through the lens of human flourishing, a shrimp is not a human. They don't count. They don't add up in the equation. So you wouldn't care about shrimp welfare. If you're a natural law theorist, shrimp don't factor in the way that you would like them to. In order to care about shrimp, you have to be specifically somebody who is tabbing up, i.e. a utilitarian, units of suffering, and somebody who thinks that shrimp suffering is worth tabbing up. The question you might ask yourself is, yes, it's only $1. Wick also bought a Coke for $1. I don't know what it cost Wick. I'm assuming it's $1 for this example. And by drinking that Coke, he got some units of pleasure. So the question is whether the units of pleasure Wick is receiving by drinking this Coke outweigh the suffering of 15,000 shrimp. The fact that Wick is drinking the Coke implies to me that Wick thinks the Coke is better than the shrimp, and I think he's right.
Well, sorry, I will just note, the argument absolutely does not require you to be a utilitarian. I mean, for example, I wrote a blog post on this subject, and it convinced Mike Humer, who's one of the big opponents of utilitarianism, to give $1,000 to the Shrimp Welfare Project. He's a libertarian, deontologist, philosopher. The argument, so utilitarianism is controversial because it says that well-being is the only thing that matters, that we have no constraints on the pursuit of well-being, nobody has any rights, and we should just try to maximize well-being. The thing that the shrimp welfare case is orders of magnitude less controversial, okay? The shrimp welfare case, the basic argument is just, it's bad to experience really intense suffering, and you should prevent tons and tons of bad stuff if you can do it at very minimal cost. So it definitely does not require utilitarianism.
I guess my question, though, to you guys, and I want to hand it over to you, Chris, but again, it comes at an opportunity cost. If someone were to donate any amount of money, whether it be $1,000, whether it be $1, whether it be 50 cents, what have you, to this project, they are necessarily not spending that money in other places, right? Whether they buy 1,000 Cokes or whatever, or whether they donate to perhaps homeless shelters or other projects that will alleviate human suffering. So why should I forego donating to a cause that alleviates human suffering, even though it would alleviate much less, to alleviate millions of shrimp suffering? Because I think, and Ryan and Eucharist can correct me if I'm wrong, but the argument on Eucharist and Ryan's side is that I would give $1 if it saved a moment of pain from a human rather than 15,000 shrimp from excoriating, horrific death.
Yeah,
well, I mean, to be fair, they do have different reasons for that, right? Like Ryan is saying he doesn't even think shrimp are moral.
I want to hear
at
from
all.
Eucharist too, and then I want you guys to
Well,
answer the question.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because I if you introduce I reject. I don't know. I'm not as much of a philosophy bro as both of you guys, so you guys might be able to walk me down a self-contradictory rabbit hole here. But I sort of on my understanding of the term and the concept, I reject the idea that animals have moral status, but I don't reject the idea that we might have some sort of obligations to them. I think sort of like what Ryan was alluding to, that we can, by virtue of being human beings and certain relationships with them, take on certain obligations towards them. And so I think my intuition is effectively, like, I agree, it is a bad thing for people to torture shrimp. Like, I think the people who are tossing billions of shrimp into slurries so that they can slowly suffocate and freeze to death, they're doing a bad thing. And it's bad primarily, I think, on my account, because it's doing a bad thing to them. The kind of person who tortures animals is the kind of person we expect to generally be a worse human than other humans. And so I guess I agree. And so Matthew, I've read a bunch of your stuff, and I think you're right. Like, I've become convinced, I think this was a roadblock for me for a while, but I've become convinced that you're right. This doesn't require one to be a utilitarian, but it does require somebody to assume some sort of, again, fungibility or equivalency between units of pain. So like you referenced this Rethink Priorities study a lot that says, sort of the mean estimate of shrimp suffering is they probably suffer about 19% as intensely as a human being. And so I was looking through that earlier, and, I don't have the statistical acumen to like unseat the arguments they're making there or the data they're relying on. I just question what that number should mean to me, right? I'm not sufficiently convinced that 19% suffering, equivalent units stacked up against each other matters. And so the second point that I'd be interested in hearing more responses to, because you've mentioned this a couple times, Matthew. I think Nonfon, I've seen you tweet about this. I think, Matthew, one of your blogs, you said one of the only arguments against shrimp welfare that you found weighty at all was sort of the non-intuitive one, the counterintuitive implications of accepting this view of shrimp suffering, that if we should on average be having more regard for shrimp in this way, what follows from that that seems crazy, but like, hey, sometimes these things are crazy. So I was wondering if you could speak more to that and what you think sort of the craziest implications are of the view that you're presenting, because I've seen you disavow, I guess, the idea that we should trade a human life even for billions of shrimp life. You might be able to put the human value somewhere on the infinite scale, whatever. But I'm just curious what you think the craziest implication of your view is, if you think that's the most forceful kind of argument against it. But yeah, those are my things. Is like, I'm unironically speciesist, right? I think humans matter in a way that animals don't. And then so that unit of 19% is intense suffering, I can't math that into making me care about them more. It might mean that I have certain duties or obligations, if I'm trying to be a good person, to not torture animals, but I'm not following the equation of this means I should be giving my money to this relief of suffering, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so there have been a few things raised, so I guess maybe I'll start with what Wick said, and then I'll move on to others. So, the basic reason why you should give at least some money to shrimp rather than people is because it's just so much more effective in terms of bettering lives if you give to shrimp than people. Now, I think giving to people is also quite valuable. I give some of my money to effective charities helping humans. I encourage people, for example, to give to the Against Malaria Foundation, which is trying to stop people from getting malaria. But so imagine just, thought experiment. You're walking down the street and you see and you see like 100 shrimp that are suffocating in a bucket. And if you walk over and spend a minute, you can just pour them from the bucket into a body of water so they don't die. So by spending a minute, you can save 100 shrimp from painful death. Well, I think you should do that. I think you should do that not just because of the effect it would have on you, but because of the effect it would have on the shrimp. It's bad that they're like slowly suffocating to death in a barrel. But if you think it's worth spending a minute to save 100 shrimp, well, every dollar, so that means that you value averting the painful deaths of 100 shrimp at about at least a minute per 100 shrimp. Okay, so that means you value shrimp at least 6,000 per hour, and if in an hour you earn at least $4, then by donating it you can save about 6,000 shrimp from a painful death. So basically, like, based on any sort of plausible weighting of how much people, like, just on any view that implies that we should care about shrimp enough to, like, help them out, help hundreds of them by spending a minute, will also imply that it's good to give at least some amount of money to the Shrimp Welfare Project. Or, like, if there was if there were 15,000 shrimp that were about to be tortured to death, and there was a machine that was going to stun them, but it was broken, and you could fix it by just, like, slotting in $1, even if you were on your way to give that dollar to charity, like it would still seem like, yeah, spend that dollar. That it's a valid, you're averting so much bad stuff from happening.
The thing I don't like about this argument is that it tallies up suffering, without resolving the species, let's call it the species coefficient. Like, even if we assume that shrimp suffering matters for the sake of argument, there would be some kind of multiplier on it that you would have to use if you were going to compare it to anything else, units of pleasure, other things you could be doing, other suffering you could be preventing. And if you break it down to a tiny, tiny unit of time or a tiny amount of giving, you could do that for literally anything. Should I prevent ant suffering? Should I prevent shrimp suffering? Should I water the plants so maybe they feel some infinitesimal amount of suffering? Should I be donating some time to a stray dog help project? Should I? There's an infinite number of things that we could be doing, but what we have to do is actually have trade-offs between our time and our efforts and our money, and prioritize the things that matter to us. So the large number of shrimp doesn't speak to me very much because I just don't understand what the shrimp coefficient would be. And I think it would have to be, if not zero, approaching zero of all the things that I could care about in the course of my life.
Okay. Go ahead, respond. Then I wanted to read some more super chats. Thank you for the money, and give it to Chris.
So I think people tend to think that, like, I think the evidence for shrimp sentience is somewhat better than the evidence for ant sentience, and people tend to think ants aren't very sentient. If it turned out that, like, ants were super sentient and suffered intensely, then yeah, like, if you could say help out tens of thousands of ants by spending $1, like, that would seem pretty good. Now regarding your point, Eucharist, about like what the kind of ratio is. So I guess my basic view. So my view is, I think how bad it is to suffer doesn't depend on your species. Like, when I think about what's bad about being in intense pain, when I think about what would make it bad if I were in intense pain, the right account would seem to have nothing to do with, like, the fact that I'm biologically Homo sapien. Maybe me being biologically Homo sapien would affect how much I suffer. I just think about what's bad about, like, being tortured or having a really, really bad headache. It seems just very odd to think that the reason why that's bad wouldn't have to do with how it feels, but instead would have to do with the fact that I'm biologically Homo sapien or with my cognitive capacity. So I think that pain is just as bad no matter what your species is. Now, even if you think pain is, like, vastly worse if you're a human, which I struggle to see a convincing argument for why that would be, but even if you think pain is vastly worse if you're a human, I mean, in expectation, it looks like giving $1 to the Shrimp Welfare Project, by pretty conservative estimates, prevents about as much suffering as preventing 3,000 painful human deaths. If you buy the Rethink Priorities estimate, the shrimp experience suffering that 19% as intensely as people. And so then, even if you think that, like, pain experienced by shrimp is only 1/1000th as bad as an equivalent amount of pain experienced by humans, or even if you think there's only, like, a 1% chance that a view on which it's 10% as bad is true, like, just even if you think in expectation it's only 1/1000th as bad, it still means that, like, every 33 cents given to the Shrimp Welfare Project is about as valuable as averting a painful death. So I think this is, like, a good, you can, like, just given how effective it is, unless you think that shrimp's interests matter for literally zero, you end up getting the result that giving to the Shrimp Welfare Project is very valuable.
Yeah, that was basically exactly what I was going to say. But I do want to add on, like, certainly, like, even if you think, shrimp units are a unit of suffering for a shrimp is, like, not as important as a unit of suffering for a human, because of how effective the Shrimp Welfare Project is, it's probably still better than, like, the median charity, or, like, the average charity, or at least the average, like, non-effective altruist focused charity, right? So certainly, like, it's not something that you should get. I'm not saying you guys have done this, but it's not something that you should be criticized for donating for under that view, right? It'd be about the same as donating to any other charity.
I'm sorry. This strikes me as and by the way, like, in the abstract, setting aside shrimp, the concept of effective altruism, I think, is great. Like, I think we should prioritize things that work better than things that don't. But the logic of what you're saying would imply that if I had a sufficiently high shrimp coefficient and I have $1 to decide whether I'm going to give to the cancer kids at St. Jude's or the shrimp, I should do some kind of mathematical equation and come out with, oh, well, it does help enough shrimp. It turns out that is preventing that suffering is better than preventing the cancer kid suffering because I've mathed it out right. And I think that's absurd.
Look,
I just think we're obviously biased against shrimp, where like, I mean, there are just all sorts of reasons not to trust our direct intuition about how much shrimp are. Shrimp are kind of small and weird looking. We don't naturally have any empathy for them. So I don't think that we should trust our direct, like it shouldn't be that your main argument against shrimp mattering is, well, it just seems weird that shrimp matter. And then
Matt, it's not that. It's that in the course of this conversation, when I asked you about abortion, that's very complicated and a tricky one with a lot of factors. But it's clear that fetuses at late stages or even moderate stages feel pain when aborted. There's no question about that. That's a complicated question. When we talked about weighing cancer kids versus weighing buckets of shrimp, that was there's a math there and people should really lean into the math. These aren't complicated questions. You help the kid.
But that's the conclusion, right? Your conclusion is that humans matter categorically more than non-humans. We should help humans more than non-humans. And what is the argument for that other than it just seems intuitive?
I think that the burden of proof is definitely not on me to prove that humans and shrimp have any kind of moral equivalency. I think that the entire scope of human history is full of us not giving a shit about how shrimp feel, and that we were correct to do so. And furthermore, the best evidence of the fact that we shouldn't worry too much about shrimp is exactly what I said at the beginning, that they are our prey species, and we do not need to engage in undue empathetic worry about our prey. That isn't how life works. And even if we did want to care about it, there's always a trade-off between resources and what we're doing. And there's no reason for me to think that the coefficient that I would attach to shrimp suffering in any way justifies any number of shrimp suffering, meaning that it should change my behavior. For example, if I came up with a delicious shrimp recipe, if I came up with a recipe that was great, it was the most delicious shrimp recipe, but it required that I boil them alive or barbecue them alive in order to prepare it. But it made a lot of people very happy because my shrimp recipe was so delicious. I think I'm doing a good thing because the value of shrimp suffering is so low that it just doesn't factor in. And there would need to be a reason to think that it doesn't.
Okay. Before you respond, and I'm going to let you respond, I do need to make a little money. $10 from XVN232 to say happy birthday, Wick. Stand B on the old bird side. Thank you. $20 from JMac to say, out of all the animals, why the hell did you choose shrimp? Is it because they're super tasty? I mean, just seems like you want the notoriety for choosing such an outlandish cause, which is definitely a strategy. So you do you. $5.
It's because you can help 15,000 of them by spending $1, and the same is not true of other species.
Nang Ong for $5 says, cheers, birthday boy. By the way, have you received your birthday punches yet? I have received my birthday death threats. Okay, we are up to, we are way past the 42 mark. So, yeah.
If you saw the panel this week, you know why. Good work, by the way. That was theater, buddy.
Thank you. $20 from JMac to say, also want to add that we should try to reduce the suffering of the animals we consume. Also, happy birthday, Wick. Thank you. $5 from Audacity to say, shrimps don't have enough cortex development to even experience suffering. Their brains and nervous system is more akin to logic circuits than a brain. And then finally, £5 from Jacob Buckingham, the most British name I've ever fucking heard. Morals are emotions. Attempting to explain or quantify them with numbers is a non-starter. Okay, with that, Mike to Matthew, and then we're going to go to you, Trist, after that. Go ahead.
Okay, so I have given an argument for why we should care about shrimp. And the argument, I think, is relatively straightforward and appeals to very modest premises. It's bad to feel intense agony. If we reflect on why it's bad to feel intense agony, it does not seem to have to do with either species, nor does it seem to have to do with cognitive developments. The fact that your pain is bad doesn't seem to have to do with the fact that you're Homo sapien. So far as I can tell, there have been kind of a few basic objections. One of them is just a question like, why take seriously the welfare of other animals? I think that's answered by the considerations I've given so far. That just like agony is bad. Its badness doesn't seem to have to do with species or with degree of cognitive development. The second our ideas seem to be, which is like really counterintuitive to care about shrimp. The idea that we should care about them. Ryan was appealing repeatedly to the idea that, like, of course, if you had to make a trade-off between the welfare of lots of people, or between the welfare of lots of shrimp or one person, of course we'd prioritize the person. No, and my view is I don't think we should trust our direct intuitions about this very much due to all the psychological co-founders that I mentioned before. Like if shrimp were just larger and cuter, we would care way more about them. People would find it much more intuitive that like if shrimp looked like cute little puppies, people would find it way more intuitive that it's better to prevent 1,000 shrimp from being tortured than one human from stubbing their toe. I think when you take into account the fact that basically throughout nearly all of human history, we've engaged in severe moral error where we did not take into account the interests of a sizable class of sentient beings that mattered a lot. For much of, Peter Singer talks about this in The Expanding Circle, like originally people only cared about fellow tribe members, then it expanded to be like sort of people of the same civilization. Only now have we reached the kind of lukewarm cosmopolitanism. When you realize that it's just this very consistent historical error where we don't care enough about the interests of others, then we should be suspicious that we might be making the same error. So that's a reason to not trust our direct intuitions on this. And Ryan's last reason seems to be that they're a prey species. But I mean, whether or not something is a prey of you, that's just a function of whether you eat them. The mere fact that you eat some other creature doesn't make it okay,
I could make you my prey, Brian. I could make you my prey.
Right, if the rest of the human population just decided that like the population of louse was on the menu, that we should just start eating the population of louse, this would not thereby be a reason to ignore the interests of the population of louse. Whether people matter, the interest that conscious beings have, how much we should care about them, is a function of traits that they possess. It's not a function of like whether other beings eat them.
Matt, there's a trolley problem. On one side is a single human you don't know. On the other side is a pile of shrimp. How big does the pile of shrimp need to be before you pull the lever to kill the human?
I don't know, but to be clear, the argument I'm making doesn't require any argument for sharing that shrimp welfare,
because you need a coefficient.
Let me finish.
Hold on, one at a time. Let Matthew finish this point.
So the argument doesn't require any controversial commitments about like how much shrimp life matters relative to humans. It just requires the idea that like if you can prevent a very, very large amount of shrimp suffering, that's better than preventing, that like if $1 can prevent a very large amount of shrimp suffering, that's better than giving the dollar to a charity.
It absolutely matters, Matt, because this is the point I've been trying to make to you. If you put, and I'm going to ignore things like maybe people starve because the shrimp population is eradicated from the earth. Let's ignore the, the down the road complications and just look at the moral equation. If you put all the shrimp on earth on one side and a random human on the other side, and you chose to kill the random human, people would think you were insane. They would think you were totally insane. So that implies to me that if it's not zero, the coefficient that you would multiply against units of shrimp suffering to decide whether you want to prevent it would be an extraordinarily low decimal approaching zero, if not zero.
Okay, we got.
I do want to.
Yeah, let's get Nonfon. But Eucharist, hold on. Eucharist hasn't had a chance in a while. After you respond, we are definitely, and I'm looking at you, Ryan. You gotta let your buddy in here. You gotta let Eucharist throw some bows, okay? So we're gonna give it to the other side. Go ahead. That's you, Nonfon.
Oh, is that me or is that?
Not
you,
Nonfon.
Yeah,
they can respond directly to the claim, and then we can give it to you, Eucharist.
Yeah, so I mean, the thing I wanted to tell Ryan, like, he's saying like, oh, if you assign, any value to shrimp, you're gonna like necessarily entail like some negative thing when we say, I'd rather kill a human than 10 to the 100 shrimp or whatever, right? But like, I think Ryan's view arguably has like way worse entailments, because like if you assign zero value to shrimp, I could attach like a universe to like infinite shrimp suffering, right? Or if you don't think that like infinite is a meaningful term, like just like a universe that lasts a billion years,
shrimp
where
hell.
10 to the 100 shrimp are suffering. Yeah, exactly. Shrimp hell, where these shrimp suffer constantly nonstop, versus like someone getting a paper cut on the other side. And if you assign like zero value to shrimp, like you'd be committed to saying that, oh, it'd be worse to give the human the paper cut in that case, right?
Wick, am I responding? I didn't want to.
Yeah.
I was chided, so I don't want to.
Yeah, I understand. Well, I think your answer would be yes, correct?
Yeah, I think. I mean, I think that the number is zero, but B, even if the reason I was making the trolley question is that assuming I'm wrong and the shrimp coefficient is not zero, The reason I was asking how many shrimp lives would outweigh a human life is you have to figure out what the metric would be in order to make the comparison. Wick has to make a decision. Am I spending $1 on the shrimp welfare project or making myself feel happy with this delicious Coca-Cola? There's his joy versus the shrimp suffering. And there's no way to figure that out unless you can figure out the question you, Chris, asked at the very beginning, which is how fungible is suffering in a cross-species experience? The trolley hypothetical I gave shows that it should be a very, very low number. And because of that, it doesn't seem like it would matter very much.
Eucharist, we're
I
gonna
think Matt has
have to go
provided
to
answers
Eucharist,
for-
and then Eucharist
Yeah.
needs
Oh
some-
man, I have so many things. My first question, I have a lot of questions. My first question is, how much of my mental suffering and anguish is equivalent to how much shrimp suffering right now because I'm dying? So that's that's a completely ridiculous question. But so okay. Matthew brought up a thought experiment, and I have to say one thing that I appreciate about effective altruists and Matthew, Nonfon, people who engage in this stuff is I do think they're very consistent. They're very good at thought experiments. They come up with some good ones. I like them a lot. But I think the thought experiment here already assumes some sort of proximity that I intuit bring some sort of obligation with it. I'm glad you brought up Peter Singer because I was going to bring him up, and I have just this visceral rage against Peter Singer. So these are exposing some of the differences in our intuitions, which is I just I read the very famous thought experiment of the drowning boy in the pond next to me versus the Ganges, etc. And to me, I come away with a complete opposite intuition from Singer and all of his followers, which is that I do have some sort of obligation to the people closest to me that is different than the obligations I have towards people far away from me, and I don't think that's something that we can just solve with math equations and philosophy and everything else. And so I think too, another thing that this thought experiment exposes is another difference in intuition. And again, so I'm not presenting, I'm not capable right now of presenting syllogisms that prove there's some inherent contradiction in the shrimp welfare view. I'm just saying the example you gave of, well, you're walking past this bucket of 15,000 shrimp and you could, with 1 minute of your time, save them from immense suffering. And of course you would do it because you value, at least 15,000 shrimp, at least according to a minute of your time. That to me is completely unintuitive in how I sort of calculate ethics, right? So I'm thinking like, this is completely outside of the scope of what we're talking about, right? But I've spent time with friends in conversations, or I'm Christian, so maybe praying with them, etc., doing things that I know if I had taken those hours and put somewhere else, I could have relieved a lot more suffering. I could have done a lot more good on a spreadsheet, right? But I am at this point not convinced that I have done something wrong, or at least have not done something good by failing to use that time for the most good thing. So yes, I agree. If I'm doing the thing that only takes a minute and I can relieve a lot of pain for an animal, I'll probably do that, right? I'll pull the animal out of the fence, like I've done that before. I've saved animals on the side of the road, that kind of thing, right? I'll do that. Not because I think it's a math equation, though. That's the problem. And so I think that's the break there. I do kind of agree. I'm not sure. I might be saying this wrong. I do kind of agree that what you're saying is the value of suffering, or the weight that we put on suffering in these ethical questions, is not based on the fact of us being biologically Homo sapien or how it feels to be a creature with certain complex, intellectual life. I kind of agree, but also you're saying it's just like the pain is bad, and if I were a shrimp, the pain would be bad too. I guess so I'm combining, I think, like Hegelian and Aristotelian intuitions, where it's like, I just don't know what it's like to be a shrimp, and I just don't know what it's like to be a bat, but I do know what it's like to be a human being, and I know that I care about human suffering, and so that's sort of like foremost in my hierarchy. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't think it's bad to torture animals. That means I could think it's bad for other reasons. And so, yeah, I think Ryan and I might have some different disagreements, but the one thing we definitely do agree on, I think, is that I don't think that pain is calculable in the abstract like this. And I don't think it's calculable because I don't know what it's like to be a shrimp. I can say the people who are torturing them are doing bad things. I can maybe look for more ethical shrimp producers when I go to eat shrimp. I might cut shrimp out of my diet because I think the people, producing shrimp are doing bad things. But like the chain of argument is not as clear to me. I'm not making my point very well, but that's it's been 20 minutes since I talked, so there's a lot of things to respond to, but that's what I've got for now.
Okay,
So maybe I'll come up with something more coherent.
Matthew, Nonfon, your turn.
Yeah, so I don't think what the argument requires, like there are lots of kind of there are lots of ideas that Peter Singer has, like he doesn't think that if that your obligations get any weaker if that you like he doesn't believe in special obligations or anything to your friends and family. But I think at the very least, okay, so you agree that you should spend a minute to save 15,000 shrimp if they were right in front of you. I guess intuitively it doesn't seem like how like whether or not the way you save the shrimp was by pouring them into a bucket or where so that they wouldn't die, or by pressing a button that would save 15,000 far away shrimp. Like those seem equally valuable. Now you've talked a little bit about how you don't think ethics is a math equation. So we'd have to talk. It's hard. We'd have to talk a little bit more about exactly what this means. But I don't think that anything that I've said so far has assumed any kind of like utilitarian calculation, or has it assumed that you should always be maximizing expected value. My idea is just like it's bad when creatures suffer and die, and so if you can prevent very large amounts of it at very small cost. I'm not suggesting that this is the only thing that you should do with your life. I'm not suggesting that you have to become some like hyper utilitarian robot. But I'm saying like, if one day you give $100 to the Shrimp Welfare Project and then you just never think about it again, there'll be 1.5 million fewer creatures experiencing slow and painful deaths because of you. And so this it seems like a valuable thing to do. Now regarding Ryan's
Why this is where I'm the argument's failing to me. Why do that over giving me $100?
Because giving you $100 does not say that gives you some benefit, and that's good.
More important
than the marginal benefit's a lot smaller.
Right. I would be skeptical in expectation that the benefit you get from $100 is anywhere near the benefit that even one shrimp gets from not being tortured to death, much less the benefit that 1.5 million shrimp get. Now, Ryan had this argument.
Matthew, the inverse of that argument is that there would be, if depriving me of pleasure to a $100 amount, like whatever the amount of the shrimp is, then the inverse of that would be like it would be okay to cause me X amount of pain to save this amount of shrimp, and that shrimp number could be large.
Not necessarily.
Like, because just real quick, like from the utilitarian framework, like that could be the case. But I just want to say, like, all these cases are things where you're kind of like violating like side constraints, right? It's like, we're gonna, maybe like you can value humans infinitely and say like it's never okay to harm a human to help shrimp. That's fine. It can still be good to help the Shrimp Welfare Project, because when you donate to a Shrimp Welfare Project, you're not violating any type of those like side constraints. Right?
I consider depriving me of $100 harm. You've harmed
But it's not it's not like stealing from you. It's just not giving it to you. And on lots of people's ethical intuitions, and we could talk about whether these are defensible, but this is just like a totally different discussion. On lots of people's ethical intuitions, there's a big difference between harming someone and just failing to benefit someone. So people think that it's a lot worse to steal money from St. Jude's than to just not give money to St. Jude's, for example.
So this is why I think, while I appreciate that you're attempting to frame this in non-utilitarian terms, the reason we keep circling back to that is that ultimately the question comes down to your use of time, your use of money, which could do a number of things to promote shrimp welfare, versus any other end, like giving Wick $1 so that he can have pizza. And in order to make that decision, there is an inherently utilitarian calculus going on the argument you presented, which is shrimp suffering is bad, therefore it should be prevented if it can be done at minimal cost. But if that minimal cost could be preventing human suffering, like Wick being kind of hungry because he has no pizza, then the question is, which one matters more? And when you talk about effective altruism, you have to figure out what the species coefficient is. Yes, there's a lot of shrimp, but how much do they matter? And the reason I keep coming back to these trolley hypotheticals and how many shrimp lives are equal to a human life is that if you're not positing an answer to that question, my intuition, as I've said, is that the number is very, very low, vanishingly low. And I don't have a reason to think differently. And if you, Chris, earlier said that you cited a study, and I haven't read it, so please forgive me if I get this wrong, that shrimp suffering was 19, let's round it up to 20%, as severe as human suffering. If you're proposing that the ratio of shrimp to human in terms of shrimp coefficient is 5-1, where if you can save 5 shrimp, you shouldn't benefit Wick, I would say you're insane. Like that clearly is too high a number. But there has to be a number, because your argument is presupposing that we can tabulate suffering and make decisions on the basis of how much there is.
I do have haters that would say that you're wrong and that they should torture me to save even one shrimp. But
yeah, actually, the equation is reversed in the case of Wick. He's actually worth about a fifth as much as a shrimp. So
true, but I do want to read some.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Good.
read some super chats. Sorry, because you won't deprive me of my $100. $50. I'm sorry. Here we go. $50 from Frank to say nothing. Best type of money to give me. $10 from Artemis Fowl to say the easiest argument against caring about shrimp based on pain and agony is understanding that this person will do nothing to stop China's eating many of the animals alive. Until he does, ignore him. To be fair to them, they are saying that the ease of solving the shrimp problem is far, far easier than the solving the China problem.
I'll go on record and say it's bad when people in China eat animals alive, and if there's an organization that stopped lots of that at minimal cost, that would be a good thing.
Okay, $20.
Could I intervene? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and then yes, you can. $20 from James to say happy birthday. Get some more Warhammer. Slay the Gray. I will absolutely get some more Warhammer with your money. Thank you. $5 from Audacity. Say this is just anthropomorphism, make believe, nothing captured in reality. $5 from Deej Nuts. Haha. To say shrimp are food, not friends. Exponential multiplication of 0 is still 0. And then $10 from Artemis Fowl to say, can someone ask the shrimp simp to not commit physical hygiene from now on, as he would save untold trillions of organisms from a horrific death. This will promote bacteria welfare and is utilitarian. Thank you for the $10. Okay, Eucharist, and then we can get back to it.
Bacteria aren't conscious.
Sorry. I want to. Oh, good. You.
Sorry, I do want to just address this, the trolley problem thing that Ryan's been bringing up a lot. So, first of all, in order to say that, you don't actually have to know the exact ratio. I guess my ratio for, how many averted painful experiences to humans would be as valuable as how many to shrimp. I don't know, a few hundred seems like a pretty conservative number. If you could either prevent, 400 shrimp from stubbing their toe, or 400 people shrimp don't have toes, but from the equivalent of stubbing their toe, or one person, I'd say, that seems like a pretty reasonable and conservative estimate of where it would start to be neutral. I agree that this is unintuitive, at least to some degree, but I don't think our intuitions are that consistent here, and once again, for the reasons I described, I don't think that our intuitions are that trustworthy for all sorts of methodological reasons that I gave earlier. One bias, for example, humans suffer from a bias called scope neglect, where when numbers get big, our intuitive gauge of them gets very murky. Humans will pay roughly the same amount to save 200 birds as to save 20,000 birds, as to save 200,000 birds. So I don't think that if there are creatures that we don't naturally feel empathy towards, then I don't think that we should rely on our direct intuitions that they don't matter, that hundreds of thousands of them don't matter, when our intuitions about them directly aren't trustworthy, and our intuitions about very large numbers are even less trustworthy. And we know from psychological experiments that our intuitions about those are wildly untrustworthy. There was some other point I wanted to respond to, but I don't remember what it is. So
just to be clear, because I want to make sure I understood what you said before I lean too heavily on it. If you're saying that if there was a choice between preventing somebody, and in your articles, one of the things you talk about is that shrimp farmers will sometimes remove the eye stalks of female shrimp to increase fertility so that they have more offspring, so that they can have more shrimp in the farm. So if you had an option between preventing one human from losing their eyes or 400 shrimp from losing their eye stalks, your position is that weighs in favor of the shrimp.
I don't know you're introducing an additional complicating factor. Humans do a lot more with our eyes and we live a lot longer, right? So if a human's eye was destroyed, then it would be a much longer period of sightlessness. What you'd have to give an analogy of is just imagine that there was an experience that did not have long lasting damage, right? So imagine it was human.
We're stabbing them with proportionate blades in non-essential body parts. They're all getting stabbed.
Right. And so it doesn't damage their long-term ability to function in the world. It's just temporarily painful.
They'll heal. They'll be fine.
Yeah. So then it would be probably a few hundred seems conservative to me.
Okay. So in that situation, you would prevent 400 shrimp from being stabbed instead of one human from being stabbed.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, I think you're going to struggle to convince people.
Let's give it to you, Chris. Go ahead, Chris.
Hold on.
I agree that's unintuitive, but
right.
For reasons I've given at length and repeatedly, I don't think our direct intuitions about this are reliable.
Right, but I also just want to add, like, Ryan's view seems to entail, like, equally, if not more, unintuitive views, right? Like, if Ryan is saying, like, the thing that gives people or things moral value is, like, natural rights or whatever, and their place in the food chain, like, presumably that would apply to, like, you know, dogs as well. And, like, all of us have a very strong intuition that, like, it's not okay to, you know, just torture dogs. But if you're saying, like, you know, they have literally zero moral weight, absent, like, a dog's relationship to a human, like, would you see anything wrong with, like, just skinning a dog alive?
I think that dogs' moral weight is exactly what you said. It's based on their relationship to humans. And you, Chris, said this
So that would,
well earlier, that the kind of person who takes delight in suffering of an animal might be a dangerous person you want to avoid. It might be doing harm to their own psychological state. And especially if that dog is in a relationship with a person, they're the owner of the dog, they might have extended moral patient status to the dog in light of their relationship with it. But the dog's moral worth has nothing to do with itself as the dog. The moral worth has everything to do with us as humans. And I think that's how that plays out.
I
Yeah.
do need to give Eucharist a chance to speak.
okay.
He's been trying, and he's gonna
Yeah, sorry.
make
I'm
like
gonna
1,000
explode.
notes.
The amount of suffering I'm experiencing outweighs billions of shrimp at this point. No, it's okay. One of the reasons, one of the super chats brought up, like, yeah, shrimp brains are like logic gates. Like, it's not. One of the reasons I'm not bringing up arguments about like neurons or complexity of brains or whatever is I think they assume something that I'm not willing to admit, which is that pain is fungible or scalable based on those criteria. So I think if you go, and I would encourage everybody who's watching this who finds this unintuitive to go read Bentham's Bulldog Substack. It's a fun experience to find your intuitions pressed on these things, and I think there are good responses to most of the arguments that people are presenting in terms of like complexity of brains, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's like I think again that's an intuition thing I'm missing. I guess one question I wanted to hear both Nonfon and Matthew respond to, because the most recent book I've read on like animal welfare, I guess, came out a few years ago, was Martha Nussbaum's book on the subject. And she seems to have some sort of intuition that we ought to be like, sort of actively, not only like not factory farming or factory farming at least in less painful ways, but that we ought to be intervening in the natural world to prevent certain kinds of suffering. And so I'm curious if either of you have an intuition that like is there anything that matters about the fact that some of this suffering is caused by human intervention rather than caused or just not prevented by human intervention, right? So if I could, for example, donate to the Gazelle Welfare Project and fund a bunch of salt licks on the savannah so that that we were laced with heroin, so that gazelles would anesthetize themselves and so that their suffering at the hands of lions was less, would that be a good project to donate to, for example, or is it the fact that there's human intervention here that matters? Because if it is the fact of human intervention that matters, we might be closer than I think, in the sense that like I think what's bad here is the people who are torturing animals. They're bad people and we shouldn't do that. Yeah. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
I can say stuff, but I feel like I've been talking too much. So Nonfon, if you want to go ahead.
I mean, I guess like, I think suffering is bad no matter what, essentially. So to some extent, like there might be a difference between like, commission and omission, in that like, we're actively like choosing to harm shrimp versus just sort of like letting wild animal suffering happen. But like to the extent that, we think that wild animals live negative lives and like human intervention could either make their lives more positive or like reduce their future population. Like I do think humans would have some obligation to do that. I just also don't think that, I don't think that has too much to do with whether it's good to donate to shrimp welfare. But
Can I ask a question? This was brought up in a super chat I'll read later, but I find it interesting. I'm going to adjust it a little bit. If you had a percentage of babies, human babies that were born every year, they weren't conscious, they were in comas, right? They couldn't feel pain, right? We knew 100% they would feel no pain. They would never wake up. They would be vegetables the rest of their lives. And we could transition from eating shrimp to eating them. Would you do that?
I would. That seems better because they don't have any experiences. Okay. I grant that this is unintuitive, and it's certainly not something that you have to think that shrimp welfare is important. Because you might, like, lots of people have think that just sort of like degrading body is intrinsically morally wrong. I don't think that. There are arguments against it, but it's a somewhat separate topic. So that's my honest view. But like, it's kind of unrelated to my
good. We like honest here. This is an interesting question.
Yeah,
Okay.
I do want to just address.
hold on. I just
you
want
gonna-
to. I just want
are
to be
you
like
gonna
ultra clear.
disavow
Okay,
Nonfon?
there's been like 3 or 4 times where like people bring up like, oh, like your view like entails this unintuitive thing, but like if I'm not like misunderstanding Ryan, if animal suffering only matters because like humans have a relationship with them, like if someone got like eating a chocolate bar's worth of happiness from skinning a dog alive and that dog wasn't related to any other human, it seems like Ryan would have to be okay with that,
I don't.
which is very
Wait,
unintuitive.
wait. No, I mean, if we
No,
assume some sort of like harm to the
Ru-
person from the experience of torturing, like then I don't know that follows necessarily. But
and
We're
also
saying that
just because I want to keep saying this, Ryan is not a utilitarian. What I'm doing is adopting a utilitarian framework for the purpose of critiquing your position because it
no.
inherently relies on summing
oh no,
harms and good benefits. Oh, we lost him.
oh he's back. He's in backstage.
Yeah. I don't know.
Give me a second. I gotta go back to my thing.
Not on the point I'm making.
The
Just
shrimp
to, like,
gotcha,
kind of cut through
buddy. Okay, sorry. Are you back?
The shrimp
Right.
mafia.
Oh no.
to cut through the
I-
philosophy, bro.
My audio disconnected for a second.
Oh, I'm sorry,
I
but he's
left
back
him
now,
again.
gang. Okay, sorry about that, Ryan. Finish your point, please.
I just the reason that we keep coming to these counterintuitive positions when we start summing up units of suffering and trying to figure out what to do on the basis of that is that utilitarianism, which this is by extension, though I understand we're not making that argument formally, this sort of moral calculus, when the poster said it's not a math problem, always ends up with absurd conclusions. That's what it does. It's why it's a bad moral system. So the fact that we're arriving at these absurd conclusions is unsurprising to me because that's how it always goes this way. You end up with the utilitarian monster. You end up with a shrimp costume in your bedroom instead of saving the kids at St. Jude's.
I'm sorry. The shrimp costume is cool.
Hold on,
Okay,
that's true. But just to be clear, what I'm saying is that your view, which you have expressed, also entails ridiculous things, right? So like the example I gave, a dog that's only like known to exist to one person, right? Let's say this one person gets like a trivial amount of happiness from skinning this dog alive. Because you only believe animals have value in relation to their relationship with humans, it seems like you would have to be okay with that person skinning the dog alive because they're the only person that knows that dog exists. That dog doesn't have rights, and the person gets a trivial amount of happiness from skinning the dog.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you up to the trivial amount of happiness thing. I don't think that the happiness matters that much. I don't think that there's a moral component to animals outside of their relationship to humans. Correct.
So sorry, just one other case. So imagine there's this like machine, okay? It's out in the outer recesses of outer space. Only you know about it. And by spending $1, oh, sorry, I should specify what the machine does. Oops. Sorry, what the machine does is it.
Okay, go. Sorry.
For all
is this
of
the baby
eternity-
torture machine?
For all of eternity, it just like drops every second. It drops like 10 billion dogs into a pit of fire where they slowly roast to death. They're like shrieking in agony and like trying to escape. And you can shut down this machine for $1. You're the only person who knows about it. No one else will know about it. Let's say your memory of it will be wiped in 5 minutes, so it certainly won't have any long-term degradative effects on your character. Is your view that you shouldn't spend the money on that because you should give it to St. Jude's?
No, I mean, A, yes, but B, I think that
That doesn't sound like a no. That sounds like a yes.
I don't think I have a moral obligation in either case. But on my view, but my obligation to the hypothetical puppy killing machine is zero. I don't think I have any obligation. This is not my situation. Has no connection to me. No.
I mean, I just think like that's kind of crazy, because I think it's bad to be in excruciating agony, and if you can prevent a very, very large amount of bad stuff from happening at small cost, you should do so. I want to address something Eucharist said earlier.
Go ahead.
And by the way, to Ryan, if your position entails that, then I don't think you get to get on your high horse and talk about how unintuitive our position is when you don't think anyone has even remotely strong moral reasons to stop the endless dog torture machine. But I want to respond.
Whoa, hold on. you have taken the position that fetus suffering is too complicated to talk about, and that 400 shrimp being stabbed is more important than in moral significance than one person being stabbed. And your concern is that in a hypothetical space machine
Oh, no.
that kills puppies,
Hold
that
on.
now I'm being counterintuitive. No, I'm not going to stop because he left. That's a fucking ridiculous point.
Well, he got his tech.
Sorry,
he's
my
having
mic
technical
keeps disconnecting for some reason. I didn't know why it's doing that, but sorry about that.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on either.
It like this has been like a years long Discord thing where just sometimes my mic randomly disconnects and then I have to leave and rejoin. It's very annoying.
We need
But,
to get to a microphone
sorry.
welfare project for you, okay?
And
A
for the
microphone
record, just
welfare
because
project to donate to Matthew to make sure that he can have a better audio connection. So yeah. Anyway,
and look, I'm not saying people shouldn't donate to the Shrimp Welfare Project. If it makes people happy, if they want to do it, if it makes them feel good, they should do it. I'm merely pointing out that the equivalencies that are being drawn here are not just counterintuitive, they are bordering on insane. And I think that when you start adding up suffering in the way that you're doing, this is the outcome you get. This is why people hate utilitarianism, because it leads to these insane conclusions when anybody who looks at the human species would say, you know what? These are our prey animals. Our job is not to take care of their well-being. Our job is to eat them.
Okay, I want to give it to Matthew again, who had a question for you, Chris. Go ahead, Matthew.
Wait, can you all hear it? Oh, wait, okay, you can.
We
Cool.
can. Yeah.
So I thought it had disconnected again. Very nice.
Oh no.
Sorry. So, I guess I find the idea that it's not a good use of $1 to shut off the infinite dog torture machine to be way more counterintuitive than the stuff that I've said. I think the stuff I've said, I don't actually think it's counterintuitive. Like, it sort of sounds weird when you hear it. But when you really just think about what it's like to be a shrimp, you think about like just these creatures who can plausibly feel intense pain, just like experiencing really terrible experiences that are like the experiences that you or I would experience when we're in intense pain. It doesn't seem at all counterintuitive that that's really significant. And I think the reason why we don't think that that's significant is just kind of like flagrant bias against shrimp because they're small and look weird. If they were cute, then I don't think we would feel that way. I want to address what Eucharist said earlier because he says, we're not really sure exactly what it's like to be a shrimp. Like, we don't know. I agree we have some amount of uncertainty. It's possible shrimp aren't even conscious. But I think if there's at least a sizable probability that shrimp feel intense suffering. They certainly like behave as if they feel intense suffering. Like if you boil a lobster in a pot, it'll try to get out of the pot. It seems like it's in intense agony. Similar things happen with shrimp. They like flick their tail and try to escape. And so if a creature feels like acts as if it's in really intense agony, then I think that a kind of reasonable estimate is that you at least should think it's pretty plausible that it's in intense agony. And even if you have some uncertainty about it, an action that has a 50% chance of preventing 15,000 beings from experiencing prolonged intense agony is a very valuable action. So uncertainty isn't enough to make it so that we don't act. We always have uncertainty about how much good our actions do, but nonetheless, it's worth acting even given some uncertainty.
It's not just the uncertainty. I don't think. I think it's the again, like I said at the beginning, I think I'm willing to say, based on the stats that you've shown and other things, and my experience with animals, like there are a whole host of animals that experience something that is at least analogous to what I would think of as intense pain, right? Like I've seen dogs yelping, I've seen animals limping, and like you've shown these charts of like shrimp demonstrate similar features, like limping, like not et cetera, et cetera. So I'm okay with that. It's that there's a kind equivalence here that I just don't follow, right? So like I can imagine that this thing is experiencing something analogous to or very similar to what I experience as pain. I cannot yet make that leap and say that their pain is the same thing as my pain in a way that we can stack them and scale them. That's the difference that I'm. So I again I think it's horrible to intentionally cause pain for unnecessary reasons. The kind of people who enjoy this, bad people, etc. There's a question though. Yeah. So the reason I bring up the Nagel thing is like, you're like, well, I can imagine what it's like to be a shrimp. And I'm like, can you? You can imagine being a little bug-like creature, but like his point in this article is like, yeah, I mean, like I can imagine what it's like to hang upside down and to have leathery wings. But at that point, I'm just like, I can imagine what it's like to experience human consciousness in a slightly different or majorly different physical form. I have not yet been able to conceive of what it's like to be a bat. And I think that's a very compelling point. To the point where I can't buy this equivalence between units of shrimp suffering and mine. And so again, like the reason I'm not bringing up certain arguments I think you respond to very deftly are that like, yeah, no, I don't think it's a matter of neurons. I don't think it's a matter of like, it's not just a utilitarian thing. It's not just a hedons thing. I think you address those problems very well. There's just I think at a fundamental base level thing when you lay out your 3-part syllogism of like, if you can prevent a lot of suffering for a little bit of money, you should do it. You can prevent a lot of suffering with this money to the shrimp welfare project, so you should do it. I'm just like, the suffering units are the thing I'm grappling with, and I just have not been able to bridge that gap intuitively. Yeah.
I don't think you would need to have like precise units or anything. The idea is just that like there's some like very intuitive sense in which if you prevent lots of beings from experiencing experiences that feel really bad, then you've prevented a lot of suffering. Like this doesn't require that you're a utilitarian. Like even non-utilitarians should say like sparing 10,000 dogs from burning alive prevents a lot of suffering. Maybe it's not precise, maybe the exact amount is vague or something, but like this is just it's a fairly intuitive notion that I don't think requires very strange utilitarian kinematics. So I guess I'd be curious, Eucharist. So suppose that like you were able to like plug into a VCR machine where you were able to see things from the perspective of a shrimp. And it turned out that shrimp, when they suffered, it basically felt like it feels to be a human, except just when you're not, except minus like higher order reflection or
like a chatter in one of my streams, yeah. Okay.
Or like, various, ability to like, reflect in various ways. Yeah. If it turned out that what it felt like to be a shrimp was it just like really hurt, when they were suffocated to death. Would you think that then giving to the Shrimp Welfare Project was valuable?
I'm not laughing at you. I just checked X. Wick, well done.
Okay. No, I guess that this is this is where I'm running into a difficulty. I'm not even like opposed to the idea of the shrimp welfare. Like I think it's a great thing that in the past 40 to 50 years we have made advances in farming that are more humane, right? I think it's a good thing that probably, well, I don't know if this is actually true empirically, but if it is the case, I think it's a good thing that reflection on animal suffering has led to fewer animal suffering. We do things in more humane ways on big animal farms, etc. And I'm not even opposed to the idea of stunning shrimp. Like, yeah, again, like the people who are doing that, it's a bad thing. So I'm not like saying I think people are doing a bad thing when they donate to the Shrimp Welfare Project. I'm questioning the calculation that leads me to think that my dollars given to the Shrimp Welfare Project are best used there compared to et cetera, right? So that's...
Yeah, so to be clear, I don't think it's obvious what the best charity is. Like, there are other charities that are really valuable, especially if you start, like, buying big brain, like utilitarian arguments. There are lots of other organizations that you can give money to that are very valuable. I guess the thing I want to convince people of is, like, this is a good place to give money. It's something that people should seriously think about, whether it's the absolute best charity or just, like, one of the really good charities. I don't know, there are quite a few. But I think it's at least clear that it's like a good thing to do to give your money. It's not some idiotic organization that people only give to because they have had their brains subsumed by the utilitarian virus. I think...
Sure. I guess my point, I guess, is I think somebody can agree this might be a good thing to do and arrive at a similar moral conclusion for very, very different reasons that don't have all the same implications that I'm concerned with. So I think that's where I'm running into some difficulty. I mean, it sounds
like you're on our side here. Like you're not a utilitarian, but you're a pro Shrimp Welfare Project. You think it's good to give money to them.
No, so the most compelling case that I've seen, and I've been poking for the past week or so in the lead up to this. You have an article. This was exactly what I was looking for. You have an article specifically on virtue ethical reasons for donating the Shrimp Welfare Project. That's largely where I'd place myself. I couldn't present a great defense of virtue ethics off the top of the dome, but I can say that I think that's largely the camp I put myself in. I don't agree even there with all of your arguments that like it would be a virtue ethical thing to develop empathy for shrimp. These are not things that I'm convinced of. I think that somebody who wants to be a good person, who does not want to be the kind of person who enjoys torturing animals, might do that for different reasons than the development of empathy for shrimp. And again, so this is a question I led off with at the beginning was, I'm most interested, I think, in the long-term implications of this, not in the like utilitarian monster situation where all we're doing is shaving shrimp at the expense of the human race, but in the sense that like, what does a human being 100 years from now look like who's been sufficiently convinced they should care this much about shrimp? How much of their feeling and time is devoted to caring about the shrimp being thrown on the ice versus humanity versus any other ethical concern? That's one of the things I'm most curious about. Yeah.
I don't think you need to like have super strong, like, to recognize that something is valuable. You don't have to have super strong feelings about it. Like, you know, I think that the Shrimp Welfare Project is quite valuable. Okay, but I didn't spend very much time like lamenting in letting out great cries of anguish about the suffering of the shrimp. It doesn't make me sad.
That just means you don't believe it. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
I mean, just, you know, when you're a rational creature, you're capable of recognizing that something's important, even if it doesn't resonate with you emotionally very much. Especially when you see that the reason it doesn't that it doesn't register with you emotionally is due to a whole host of extraneous biases and factors that don't affect its actual importance, but do affect your degree of empathy for it.
This was a comment on that virtue ethics article that I think I agreed with very strongly, which said, I mean, you made the good point, which is like, on a virtue ethical framework, even if you don't currently feel the thing, you still ought to do the right thing, yes. But the ultimate goal is to both feel and do the right thing, at least if we're taking a sort of Aristotelian approach to virtue ethics. And so I think you're right. Like, if I'm buying your arguments, there are like, all of the feelings that I ought to have towards shrimp are not intuitive, but I really, if I'm going to be a good person, ought to develop them. And I'm just curious what a world looks like full of good people who've developed the proper feelings towards shrimp, you know?
Well, and then Eucharist, what comes next? After we develop all the proper feelings towards shrimp, and now we're maximally empathetic towards shrimp, which prey species is the next one that we should become maximally empathetic to?
Again, Gazelle Welfare Project, Salt Licks with Heroin. That's what I'm funding, okay? That's my project now.
I think wild animal suffering does matter. Like, I mean, so one kind of helpful thought experiment, okay? Imagine being... This was provided by Rawls. This is going to be a slight spin-off of it. But imagine making decisions behind the veil of ignorance, okay? Where you don't know who in society you'll be. You're like designing rules for society as you would if you didn't know who you would be. So for example, suppose you're deciding, should Ted Bundy like go around killing people? Well, you'd obviously be opposed to that if you were behind the veil of ignorance, because you'd be way more likely to be one of the people killed than the person who got, you know, slight comparative pleasure from killing other people. But if you, behind the veil of ignorance, you'd be vastly likelier to be a farmed shrimp than a person, and the odds would be nearly 100% that you'd be a farmed animal. There are 440 billion farmed shrimp killed painfully every year, okay? So that means that roughly 4 times the number of people who have ever lived, 4 times that many farmed shrimp are killed every single year. The number of wild shrimp killed is like 10 trillion or something. It's insane. And the number of wild shrimp is vastly more than that. So I don't know. I think wild animal suffering, it's an important thing. Now, you can think shrimp welfare matters. Like you can buy the kind of virtue ethics case for caring about shrimp welfare. You can also buy the case that just we should try to stop bad things done by humans, even if you don't think that wild animal welfare matters. You get, like, the case for shrimp welfare, really, it doesn't require anything that controversial beyond the idea just that, like, if humans are causing lots of suffering and you can stop it at minimal cost, it's valuable to do so. I should maybe just briefly sketch out that kind of virtue ethics case that I gave for caring about shrimp welfare. So I think there's something deeply virtuous about demonstrating compassion towards others, even ones that you don't naturally empathize with. Like, imagine a person who just, for whatever reason, feels themselves imagine that there was a class of conscious beings that sort of looked weird, that we didn't naturally feel empathy towards. Yes. I think there would be something deeply virtuous about kind of like setting aside your feeling of intuitive revulsion and actually like taking seriously their interests. I think there's something similarly virtuous about recognizing that even though shrimp, they can't repay us, even though they're sort of these small and weird looking creatures that we don't naturally feel empathy with. The fact that they're experiencing very intense agony in horrifyingly vast numbers is morally important, and it's something we should do something about.
So would you believe, but before this, I did write down actually the veil of ignorance point, because I was reading your bug article about this. And this is one thing I wrote down, which is, again, I think a separation of intuition, which is when I think of, even if I hate Rawls for a variety of reasons, but even if I put on my Rawlsian hat, I don't think it's remotely likely that behind the veil of ignorance, I'm quoting you, you'd be millions of times more likely to be an insect than a person. I don't think that's true, because I can only imagine what it would be like to come out of the veil of ignorance as a person. And so I don't buy this cross speciesist intuition that you have. So maybe this again is a fundamental distinction. And you say as well, like, because they're little, they're weird, they look goofy, and then in that same article you say if we imagine these insects had human bodies, right, similar intellects but human bodies to correct for what you call the superficial bias, it's obvious that if we were surrounded by 100 million people who looked like us but who were like slightly dumber, we wouldn't just torture them to death. Again, kind of fair, but again, my Aristotelian intuitions are poking through, which is if we give a bunch of people, or if we give a bunch of bugs functionally human bodies with a lower intellect, they're dumb people, and so something has changed fundamentally. They are of a similar species to me that I have some regard for. Yeah.
No, and the veil of ignorance point assumes some sort of moral equivalency within a society. It must, because, for example, like if we're going to include every living thing behind the veil of ignorance, then I would say, well, for the number of species whose lives would improve if humans just did not exist would be high, because we would no longer occupy the space we do on the food chain. We would no longer be polluting. So it would be better if there were no humans behind the veil of ignorance. Using the veil of ignorance that way is exactly the problem I've been trying to draw your attention to, which is that you are drawing an equivalency between prey species and us that not only is counterintuitive, I don't think works on any level, either because as Eucharist has been saying, we can't imagine their experience, or because we don't know what their experience is, or because we simply are not the same as them. We occupy a different space. We have a different dignity. We have a different moral worth.
I agree. Well, I actually think humans have decreased net wild animal suffering. The basic case for this, I think well, we could talk about why this is, but I think it's because most wild animals live very bad lives, and so it's good to decrease wild animal population. But this is stuff all way more controversial than the shrimp stuff. But I guess I'm suspicious of this idea. Like, I think that having the right ethical view might have surprising implications. It might turn out that if it turns out that we're failing to take seriously the interests of nearly all the creatures in the world that matter, then when we start taking their interests seriously, it wouldn't be surprising if that had lots of counterintuitive ethical implications. But again, I don't think this assumes. These are all much more controversial things that I believe, right, that you don't have to believe to think that it's good to stop lots of shrimp torture by spending 1 penny.
It's like, I agree that, like, full-on utilitarianism, saying that, like, welfare and suffering is the only thing that matters, right? That does lead to counterintuitive conclusions. And now, I think there are error theories and solutions to those, obviously. But all that you have to accept for donating to the Shrimp Welfare Project to be good is that, shrimp suffering at least matters somewhat, right? And, like, as so long as you don't violate whatever, like, side constraints that you have, so long as you aren't violating people's, for instance, if you value rights, like, infinitely, so long as you aren't violating someone's rights to give to the Shrimp Welfare Project, like, it would still be a pretty good thing to donate to the Shrimp Welfare Project. Again, even if shrimp suffering matters less because of, like, just the sheer scale of the number of shrimp that you can help.
Well, so Nonfon, how would you evaluate the trade-offs? Like, if I said to you, I would rather give my $5 to my buddy Wick so he can get some whiskey for his birthday, why is that a worse use of money than saving 5 times 15,000 shrimp?
So for my moral system, right, like, what's relevant for my moral system is suffering and welfare. Like, I agree. Like, the way I would evaluate it is just like the expected value of doing either action on the total amount of utility in the world, right? But that's what's relevant for my moral system. I think what's relevant for most people's moral system, and for a lot of normies who aren't necessarily committed to one moral system to the other, is simply that welfare and, like, utility matters at least sometimes, right? Like, it is at least a consideration sometimes that we should make, and the Shrimp Welfare Project is really good at reducing suffering.
Speaking of reducing suffering and increasing my utility, exactly. $2 in sociologic to say, is this a Sharia compliant, or is this Sharia compliant? I don't know Sharia law, buddy. Dylan Bowser, member.
This conversation is not halal.
Sure, for 9 months. 9 months, damn. You're having your stream baby with me, okay? How many humans are being stabbed if I donate? Well, we'll find out later. $2 for Dylan Bowser to say funding the Wick Foundation. Thank you. $10 from Artemis Fowl to say how many, that was the baby question. How many permanently comatose child patients who cannot feel anything or conscious will Shrimp Simp let expire over saving 200 shrimp? We already had that discussion. $10 from J-Mac to say don't eat comatose babies. I mean, I don't think this needs to be said, but here we are. AK Batozai to say $5 to say, am I morally obligated to spend less money buying my next vehicle because I know it could shave more shrimp? And then $10 from Artist Fowl to say, has Shrimp Simp gotten his vasectomy yet? The only way to actually reduce shrimp pain is to reduce the human population. Practice your beliefs. Take it to its logical conclusion. Thank you for the $10. I don't think that's the logical conclusion, but I could be wrong.
Isn't he? Aren't you pro-natalist? I'm pretty sure Matthew's pro-natalist. I'm pretty sure I read that.
Oh yeah. I'm a big pro-natalist.
Yeah. So okay. All right.
I'm very much in favor of more people.
More minds, more people. Okay. I don't know. I think we're kind of winding down on this. We've hit walls unless there's some other angle that either side wants to take here.
I mean, we could just start constructing successively more and more ridiculous trolley problems and see who folds first. Okay. And I think that
I do want to say one thing briefly about the question about whether you're morally obligated to spend less on a truck. I think there are claims of the form A is valuable, A is a good thing to do, don't by themselves entail any claim about what you have a moral obligation to do. So there, the idea that it's good to give money to shrimp welfare, that does not by itself require any views about what things are obligatory. You can think that donating is merely supererogatory, that it's merely a good thing, but not obligatory. You don't have to think, just like if someone's like, St. Jude's is a good charity, you wouldn't be like, so then am I obligated to spend less on my truck? No, I mean, it's like, St. Jude's being a good charity, that does not directly imply any claims about obligations. Those will be downstream of more controversial philosophical judgments.
Right, and I do want to add, I don't want to say this in my closing because I do want Ryan to be able to respond to it. But so the justification, so I agree utilitarianism does lead to counterintuitive conclusions, but the justification for the Shrimp Welfare Project is not utilitarianism, right? It's just that welfare matters sometimes, right? And that view does not really lead to counterintuitive conclusions. Ryan's justification for why Shrimp Welfare Project isn't good, though, does lead to counterintuitive conclusions. His justification is that shrimp essentially have zero or near zero value, and that and any animal has near zero value. That does lead to counterintuitive justifications. In that we saw the baby thing earlier, and the dogs being skinned alive, right? That's pretty.
While I appreciate that this argument is not being presented in a strictly utilitarian sense, it's built on a utilitarian frame. And what I mean by that is it inherits some of the same problems. One of the core problems with utilitarianism is the question of measurement. Most of the work in utilitarianism is determined by what unit you use for how you're doing your calculation and how it's measured. And there's a great variety of views on that. So when you say preventing shrimp suffering is good, you are saying that there is a unit of suffering that applies to shrimp that has some way that we can compare it to human suffering, as we've talked about in this conversation. But that's not a given. It's not a given even on utilitarianism. In fact, as I said earlier, most utilitarians I talk to use human flourishing as their metric, where this would just fall out, unless we're talking about the impact on humans, as Eucharist highlighted earlier. So the problem here is not avoided by not being a formal utilitarian argument, because the same issue rises to the surface, which is, we need to come up with the metric. And the metric that's been presented here, whether it's 400 shrimp to one human, seems to have some rather serious problems.
I mean, you don't actually need to come up with a metric of how much, to weigh human welfare against animal welfare to buy this argument, any more than you need to have a metric about how to weigh suffering in all cases, to think imagine someone made this argument: you shouldn't torture dogs because it hurts the dogs and so it causes them lots of suffering. That would not require any controversial utilitarian commitments. It would just require the idea that suffering is a bad thing and you shouldn't, and it's bad to cause lots of bad things. So morally, it's good to prevent lots of bad things.
Hold on.
The problem is you're using the word good in almost a trivial sense. You're presupposing a world with no trade-offs. There's an infinite number of things that could in some sense be good, but when people make decisions, they're weighing the pros and cons of those decisions. So, simply to say this is good in some non-committal sense without being able to weigh it against the value of the Coke that Wick could be drinking doesn't provide any information. It's good for Wick to drink Coke because it makes him feel happy. So what?
Right. So it's not merely that it's good; it's that it's very good to prevent
It's
large
better
amounts of
than
pain.
X. It's
Yeah.
better
Yes.
than X.
Yeah, and I don't.
Hold on,
so
if I
don't
may,
know.
please, if I may, because I know I'm moderating, but I have questions and I have thoughts, right? And it's my goddamn birthday, and I'm gonna weigh in. Okay.
Happy birthday, buddy.
Thank you.
Yeah, happy birthday.
No, thank you. It's about trade-offs. You are asking and advocating that people spend their limited, finite resources, as low as it may be, on one thing, and by implication, instead of all the other options they have to spend their limited, finite resources. If I had unlimited resources, right? If I had unlimited time, unlimited money, unlimited everything, right? And I could just use that to end all the shrimp suffering, why not? I don't care because it doesn't cost me anything. There's no actual cost. And while yes, sending $1 to the Shrimp Welfare Project, I make enough that it wouldn't actually, in any real sense, cost me anything. What it would do is, why choose to do that instead of any other number of things that I could be doing? And so if I'm going to stop the suffering of shrimp over any other kind of thing, I have to know why shrimp suffering matters and how much it matters. And the how much it matters does play into that. I just naturally. What's your answer to
I
that?
agree. Certainly, how much it matters will affect it to some degree. My point is just like you don't have to know the exact ratio for it to be clear that that it's a good use of money
I have
anymore.
to have some estimate though. Like I have to like obviously if I could spend $1 to save a shrimp, I'd be like, no, fuck that shrimp. That shrimp's gonna die, and it's gonna die painfully because my $1's worth more than that single shrimp, right? So, I mean, you would agree?
Yeah. I mean, I think probably it would be a fine use of $1 to spend it to save a shrimp.
Well, how about if you had $10? I'm asking you, Matthew. If it cost $100 to save a single shrimp, would you pay that?
I would not pay that.
Okay, so it gets into a calculation. What is your kind of limit for a single shrimp? And then we are, again, putting a value, making a measurement of how much to you specifically this shrimp is worth. Okay? This shrimp suffering is worth. And
of course, any argument for doing things to help shrimp will require some judgment about the amount that shrimp matter. But the idea is the argument is just that, like, they matter enough that it's worth spending 1 penny to prevent 100 painful deaths. I guess I don't quite understand what the objection's supposed to be.
I don't know if it is. I don't know if a shrimp is worth anything to me other than they're yummy and delicious.
So you agree that it's bad when humans suffer?
Yeah. Generally.
Okay, so I guess what do you make of the basic argument that I gave for thinking that shrimp suffering is really important, which is that how bad it is for you to suffer, it doesn't depend on how smart you are, nor does it depend intrinsically on like
how
whether
much
you're
I care about it does depend on whether or not it is of my group. And by my group, I'm saying humans, whether it is like me in that it is a Homo sapien. If it is not a Homo sapien, like a dog, I love dogs, and I would destroy anyone who tried to hurt my dog, okay? Right? But that's because it's my dog, right? It's my group. It's my family, okay? Some dog on the street that I don't know has much less worth to me.
Okay, so what if we discovered, it just turns out that, like, people in Laos, I don't know why that's the example I gave, but we just discovered they're like an alien psyop, okay? They're not biologically Homo sapiens.
They're not human?
Yeah. They're they have all they have all the same cognitive capacities as humans. They have all the same ability to feel pleasure and pain, all the same, they sort of behave similarly to humans, but they're just not biologically Homo sapiens. They're like aliens that have been placed here by some other aliens. They look similar to us. I would say, I mean, if we discovered that shocking and groundbreaking news, I'd say people from Laos still matter, because what determines whether you should help.
Well, that was
In your example, there are no people from Laos.
Oh no, let him finish. Let him finish. Let him finish. Please go ahead, Matthew. Please.
Yeah, if that happened, it would still be worth caring about the sentient beings in Laos that we previously believed to be people.
But only because we previously believed them to be people. Only because there's that history there. Only because there is that shared history between our species that has grown for thousands of years, right? But if that
so what
if I'll give you an example. If is
it okay to torture Superman?
If an alien spaceship crashed into Earth, okay? Crashed into Earth, and I had to pick whether to save a single human baby or those aliens, right? I'd pick the baby over those aliens because they're not me.
Even if the aliens had the same mental capacities as humans, even if that baby.
Yes.
So you'd save one human over any number of Krypton.
I would genocide entire planets of other non-human species to save humanity.
It is okay to be biased towards your species. That
I'm a
is
human supremacist.
Yeah, that is the thing I care about, is my species. I think that when you start getting to this world where we're saying that we should care, but we can't specify how much, and we can't specify what the trade-off should be.
Okay, I will say this in case the aliens ever listen to this. I'm joking, and I will be totally on your side. Glory to our new alien overlords. I just want to make that clear in case this ever gets broadcast to our alien overlords, right? This is me just kidding. But you know what I mean. Does that make sense, at least consistency-wise? I mean,
I guess it's consistent, but I don't think it's very plausible, because I don't think that how much your obligations to them don't just drop to zero because they're not biologically Homo sapien. I think what matters about people is not their biology. What matters about people is that they're sentient beings who have the ability, who have capacities of various sorts. It just seems sort of oddly fetishistic to care about the mere fact that someone
fetishist too. I don't fuck anything but humans. That's true.
The common fetish, Wick.
Yeah, I have a fetish, well, among men at least. But anyway, I agree with you that in other scenarios that I could be persuaded to change my mind given enough time and get enough argumentation. That's fair. I'm not going to die on this hill right now. I could see your arguments. I do. I understand them. But shrimp are not we're not talking about shrimp. Shrimp are, we know them. We know they're not humans. We know they don't have even close to the same sentience as humans. We know this. I just don't care about them. And to the extent I would stop their suffering, it would be to assuage my guilt, right? And that would be the only reason.
But I think you should have empathy for others. You should, rather than just consulting how little you care about them. But I think when you're deciding whether others matter, you should sort of put yourself in their shoes. You should imagine what it would be like to be them. Especially because I don't think that the plausible accounts of the I don't think the plausible accounts of the badness of pain are tied to the fact that we're Homo sapien. If you stub your toe, you're not this is terrible because I'm biologically Homo sapien, so this is intrinsically very bad.
But I only care about other people's pain because they are of me, right? Of my.
Yeah, that's Wick's objection. It's not about the pain. It's about whether we care about the pain.
Whether I care about it enough to take action.
But I'm saying if how bad the pain is not a function of their species, and you should care about things that are bad, at least trying to prevent them.
I think you're failing to make that leap. I agree with you that other species can feel pain. Shrimp, dogs, cats, whatever. I'm saying that the only reason I care about a dog's pain is because of what I feel towards that dog, right? So it's centered on me. It's centered on my humanity, right? I would not, like, people in China eat dogs because they just don't care, right? They just don't care. They don't have the same intuition, the same history, and these things. I don't think that's immoral for them. It's not something I would do, but I don't think that's immoral for them to do.
There's also
Maybe
there's a weird thing that happens when you overextend empathy outside the human species. So, true conversation I had once. I was talking, maybe being a bit of a philosophy bro and a jerk in this conversation, so you can judge me for that. But I was talking to a vegan I know, and she was talking about the moral horror of eating chicken eggs. And because they could grow, they could have been fertilized, they could have become chickens. This is in her mind immoral. I also know, because I know this person, that she personally chose to have an abortion. Now, there's a cognitive dissonance there, because she ascribes, in with her empathetic way, value to unborn chickens in a way she does not prescribe to unborn humans. And that's a very strange place to reach. And I think oftentimes people reach it with this kind of blind, quasi-utilitarian empathetic approach, where we're going to say, well, it's a problem to be biased towards your own species. Like, of course you're biased towards your own species. What better thing could there be to be biased towards?
So my view is you should pursue the good, okay? And so you shouldn't be biased in your pursuit of the good. Now, it's perfectly fine to have a stronger emotional reaction to things that affect your species. But even if you have a massive bias to your species, you count the welfare of your species 10,000 times more than the welfare of other species, the Shrimp Welfare Project still ends up looking pretty good. Now, regarding eggs, I think the reason why vegans don't eat eggs isn't because they think eggs, which are non-sentient, have moral value. It's because they think that the chickens that are forced to live in these dark, filthy, feces-ridden, desolate cages without enough space to turn around, they think that they have moral value. They think that the baby male chicks, 8 billion of whom are deposited into macerators, ground up alive, that they have moral value. That's the problem with the egg industry. It's not that the eggs themselves have moral value.
Yeah. So, and this is, I think, the thing that we keep circling, which is, at a certain point in a conversation like this, you end up having to ask yourself, like, how much do I care about the lives and experiences of X species versus anything else, especially humans?
Okay. Speaking of circling, we've circled the drain on this. So what we're gonna do is we're going to read these last super chats. I'm gonna give you guys closing statements, and then we're going to transition to the next segment. We're gonna bring on Stardust to sing me happy birthday, and I'm excited for that. And you guys can stay for that if you'd like. I'm not Hamas. I'm not gonna hold you hostage, right? I'm not gonna keep you trapped in a dark cell. Okay, so you have to lay eggs for me. But let's bring on Malik for $10 to say, Shrimp Man, when you're vacuuming your house or washing your sheets, you're killing millions of dust mites. Will you stop vacuuming and washing your sheets?
I don't think dust mites are conscious.
Okay. $5 from for Bubs. Hey, happy birthday, Wick. Hope you had a blast discussing shrimp, you hooligan. Yeah, I enjoyed this discussion. $10 from Artemis Fowl. Will Shrimp Simp support a fund that seeks to remove shrimp without sensation instantly and is 100% effective? That is far more likely than eliminating the bad sensations by saving them. I don't know.
I don't understand the question.
I'm not sure either.
And I don't know which of us is the Shrimp Simp, but
yeah, I don't know.
I'm guessing you on my intuition. $5 from Artemis Fowl to say, this guy is literally the moral consideration heat map meme. He would protect literal demons from free ren. I don't know about that, but thank you for the $5. Okay, with that, I'm going to give you, Chris, first, the mic, and then we're going to circle around, and we're going to have Matthew, the last word. And gang, I have a links to all their stuff in my YouTube description. So if you have enjoyed what they had to say, they have spent their time coming onto my show to give you content. Please spend a little time. Go. They're not shrimp, they're humans, okay? So go and give them some moral consideration, give them a follow, help them out, read their Substack, what have you. Do that. What do we got coming up? This is the last show for the week. On Tuesday, we're going to have Hutch on the Wick and Tally show. I wonder what we'll talk about. On Thursday, we're going to have Destiny versus Econoboy. 1-on-1. Socialism versus capitalism. It won't be as memey as the other debate, but it should be dense and interesting. So tune in. Okay, with that, Chris, here's the mic. Close this out.
Yeah. I don't do stuff on the internet usually. I am not as prolific as Matthew here, but I do occasionally write on Substack. Everything was beautiful.substack.com. You can go read that. I think almost all my articles are free because I don't write a lot, so I don't want to charge you people. But no, I enjoyed this a lot. I've been reading a lot of shrimp welfare stuff, and I think that there are some interesting arguments, some good responses to most of the arguments most people put forward. My fundamental mental block is, I think, what Peter Singer would call speciesist, and I am unabashedly, unironically a speciesist. I care about human beings, and I think that I do believe that we should care about the suffering of animals, but only insofar as it's an obligation we have towards them by virtue of our cultivation of them. It's not something that I think brings on any additional obligations by virtue of some moral status or anything like that. Again, I'm not attributing that to anybody here, but anyway, I just think it's been a fun conversation. I am not opposed to people donating to the Shrimp Welfare Project. I don't think they've done something bad, but I'm not convinced they've done something sort of calculably, morally better than the people who spend their time and money elsewhere. So yeah, thanks for hanging out, guys.
Oh, thanks for being here. Chris has a great Substack. You should go read it. It's very fun. Okay, Ryan Mullally, please.
Hey, thanks for having me on. And again, happy birthday. Hope everyone can donate to Wick's Whiskey and Chocolate Fund. That's a noble pursuit. And donate to the Shrimp Welfare Fund if it makes you feel good. Like, there's no reason not to. There's lots of charities out there. If this is the one that speaks to you, that's fine. I'm not attempting to prevent anyone from donating to it. My point here tonight was well said by you, Chris, that it's good to favor your own species. It's good to favor those closer to you versus those who you don't have a relationship with. And I think the really important thing to think about is that we live in a world of trade-offs, and everything has a trade-off. Just get comfortable with the trade-offs you're making. But to evaluate something without considering the trade-offs is an impossibility and will lead you to make some very bad decisions. Follow me on X. I put up stuff on YouTube apparently now, so we'll see how that goes. Would love to see you there. And thank you all for the great conversation.
No, thanks. Go check him out, gang. I put a link to his Twitter account. Give me a link to your YouTube, and I'll start linking to that. I just didn't have it, so
I'll send it to you.
give it to me, please. Thank you. Nonfon, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say, these supposed anti-shrimp welfare people, okay? Well, I've raised $35 for the Shrimp Welfare Project on my end from this stream, okay? So they have contributed to reducing suffering for like 50,000 something shrimp or whatever, all right? But yeah, I mean, really, I think the things, me and Matthew kind of both said in the opening, still hold, like, it is just a good thing to reduce suffering at trivial cost, and it doesn't rely on a utilitarian framework. And I think, like, the way to see that is that, like, no offense, when you hear Ryan say that, like, he wouldn't care about a dog being skinned alive or whatever if it only had a relationship to one human who enjoyed skinning it alive, right? You don't need a utilitarian framework to think that he's crazy for saying that, right? Like, you just need a framework that considers the welfare of animals, at least sometimes, at least a little bit, right? And, I think, like we said, even if you think that suffering isn't, like, equal between a shrimp or human, because of how much the Shrimp Welfare Project, like, how effective it is, the Shrimp Welfare Project still is probably better than the average or median charity, even if you think shrimp suffering is, like, worth 1/1000th of that of human. But yeah, I'm Nonfon, stream on Twitch and Kick, and Nonfon420, at YouTube at Nonfon, where I also upload a bunch of debates. I recently had some debates with, like, that Jubilee guy who told Mehdi Hassan to get the fuck out. I debated him about immigration.
Did
you
you
guys
win?
can go watch that. Yeah.
Good.
What?
Okay. I asked, did you win?
Oh, it was, I mean, a lot of it was kind of boring stuff about, like, whose study was better based on a national skill cell approach versus a spatial approach. I don't know who won, but
I'll go check it out. Check him out, gang. Nonfon. Look, Nonfon is my favorite. Okay, if I had to choose which one of you to save from a burning building, it would be Nonfon. Okay, because I don't know, I just have an affinity to the guy. I feel an affinity towards Nonfon. So check him out, gang. Give him a follow. All that. Matthew, it was wonderful to meet you. Tell people who you are, where they can find you, and your closing thoughts on the discussion, please.
Yeah, very nice meeting you. Thanks for the chat, everyone. So I write the blog Bentham's Bulldog. So I would encourage you to check that out if you want to read more. So I guess my basic takeaway, I think I've given sort of like 3 arguments for caring about shrimp welfare. One of them is just this kind of intuitive argument that if you could spend $1 to save 15,000 shrimp in front of you, that would be a good use of $1. This strikes me as just a very intuitive notion. Ryan's idea that like that just animals don't matter in their own right, and so it wouldn't be worth spending $1 to save infinite dogs strikes me as very counterintuitive. I also think the second argument is just that pain and suffering are bad, and you should prevent large amounts of very bad stuff at the cost of $1. I think I find this quite compelling. And then the last argument is just kind of a version of the argument for marginal cases that if you say that shrimp don't matter, then the question is, what is it about shrimp that makes their welfare unimportant? If the idea is that they're not biologically Homo sapien, that would imply that we would get to torture Superman. That would imply that if we discovered that some class of humans, of people we previously thought to be biologically human, were really not human, but had all the same capacities as humans, then their welfare would be unimportant. That notion strikes me as very unintuitive. So I guess so sort of taking all those things into account, I think there's a strong case for thinking that shrimp welfare matters. Like it feels bad to be slowly suffocated to death on a thing of ice or to be crushed to death, and if you can prevent large numbers of creatures from experiencing very intense agony at a very small cost, I think this is a really good use of $1. So I would encourage people give some money to the Shrimp Welfare Project. You can prevent lots of terrible stuff from happening for a really minor cost. You can help more people than there are people, more shrimp than there are people in Wyoming if you give $100. So I don't know, seems like a good use of money. Thanks everyone. Thanks for having me. And
thanks for being on here. I did. I mean, I fought against you a little bit, buddy, but I really did enjoy it, and I did read some of your Substack, and I think you're a whip smart guy. I enjoy your writing. So thanks everyone. You guys can stay if you want, but it is my birthday, so I'm gonna stream for a little bit longer. So bye-bye.
Happy birthday, Wick! Everybody, give him your money, okay?
True.
Give him if you give Wick $100, I will torture 100 shrimp. Okay, all right, that's my sorry. All right, I've got to go.
Okay,
Y'all have a good
I'll
night.
see you
Happy
later,
birthday,
buddy.
Wick!
Wick, how many
birthday,
donos
everybody.
for you to order shrimp scampi?
Man, $100, $100 more, and I will order shrimp scampi and eat it tomorrow. How's that?
Don't do it.
Evil.
You say evil? I don't know.
Or awful, horrible.
Oh,
All right.
okay.
Be good, everyone.
Yeah, see you later,
I'll
man.
see you.
Oh, Corey, what's up, brother?
Oh, well, they all left. But I had questions for Ryan. Well, both sides, actually.
Well, ask me
but
some of them, and
they're
I'll
all-
try to answer if I can.
Well, you seem to be on the opposing side of the shrimp welfare.
Here's the thing. I don't oppose the Shrimp Welfare Project. I'm not like, shut it down, it's a bad thing. I remain unconvinced that I should spend $1 to save 15,000 shrimp rather than $1 towards an OnlyFans girl. Okay?
Sure, that's fair.
I
can understand that
remain
rationale.
unconvinced that saving the lives or saving the 15,000 shrimp from experiencing excruciating pain is something I should do over seeing a titty for $1.
Okay. But you seem to be more sympathetic to Ryan and Eucharist's position. And I'm curious how you would answer, even though I would pose this to Ryan more specifically, because they seem to root their morality in, from what I understand, God, and they seem to be religious. And so I'm curious how you would answer, since you favor humans, and you are essentially a speciesist.
A humanist.
Then, like,
yes, a human supremacist.
yeah, a humanist.
Human supremacist, I should say.
A human so then would you be okay with like eating a Neanderthal or like torturing a Neanderthal?
I don't know any. I've never met a Neanderthal. But
Well, so the hypothetical that I would pose is in 20, 30, 50 years, okay, when we could take a human embryo and genetically engineer it to essentially be a Neanderthal. Can we do whatever we want with it?
It would start as a human, right? Like I think that it comes from a human, right? It would be a human, even if it comes out genetically altered. I do think though that if there was, again, as I said on the stream, if there were an alien species, okay, that we came across in the galaxy, and we needed more space for whatever reason, I would just wipe them out. Take them.
Okay. And as an extension of that, I don't think Ryan and yourself really understand the implications of species. Of like, so then could we eat individuals that are male who have Down syndrome because they don't technically qualify
because they come
on
from
a strict
humans.
definition?
They are humans.
But they don't. If you understand,
what Down syndrome person has been born from a non-human?
so then the question that I would pose is at some point, humans and Neanderthals in evolutionary history, they interbred, and so it's like the child of that, does that have moral worth and value, or can we eat that human Neanderthal hybrid?
Would you eat a Neanderthal, Stardust? I'll give her a second.
She's contemplating.
Yeah. Like a Neanderthal baby. Like, so you had a Neanderthal baby.
It's not no. Like, because humans, but people don't seem to understand this. There's not these clear demarcations in evolutionary history. Like humans and Neanderthals reproduced together, as in.
Do they have like the same intelligence as us?
Probably not, but I don't actually know since we can't resurrect them. But that if we can resurrect them genetically, we might be able to find out.
It would depend on how bad they are. So if they were like, okay, so like if they were dumb and they were bad and evil, actually no, even if they were smart and evil, I would totally be okay with eating them. If they were like nice, then no, I wouldn't.
I have a question for you,
Yeah.
my friend Corey.
Sure.
Fetuses that are aborted, would you eat one?
No, but I'm sympathetic to whatever vegan, or I'm essentially vegan. And would I consider it a moral transgression to eat one? Probably not. Do I have any desire to eat one? No,
No.
I
If
wouldn't.
you knew someone just snacked on them, right? Like they had a bucket of aborted fetuses. It's just yummies, right? And they were never going to come to term, right? They were
it's
never
one step
gonna
further
come
than
to
the
term or
placenta, right? Yeah, like, well, if it's in fact aborted fetuses, do I think it's, let's say, disgusting? And would I find that
You might find it
ill-advised?
gross.
But I wouldn't criminalize it, and I would not morally judge them for it. I would just
You
think
wouldn't
like,
think they're a bad person.
I would say they have poor taste and have disgusting taste. But
Okay.
would you morally condemn?
Yes, I
that?
would condemn someone who's eating fetuses. I
Okay.
feel like, bro,
Yeah, it's
that
kinda
is
gross, right?
No, not just
Well,
because they're gross.
I
because
admit that
think
it's
they're doing
gross,
something-
but like,
I think they're doing something immoral. Like these are humans or potential humans that use like.
well, if they're human, then I would assume you want that behavior criminalized. Then
Yes.
Okay, but take out the part about them
Okay.
being humans and stuff. What on the grossness scale, right? Like, are we haven't even handled the topic of like, if we take out them being humans, we take out them being like our enemies or our friends, just on a grossness level. Like, would you really want to eat a fetus? Really?
I would. I made it clear. Like, I think it's disgusting, but I would not. I don't see it as a moral transgression. And I would not criminalize it, but
Gross.
Wick would.
But it's the same thing with eating like the Neanderthal hybrid, right?
I wouldn't
Is
eat
it
either.
gross to eat one?
Oh well.
On the grossness scale, I'm not even talking about like they're our friends or our enemies or they're human or not. Okay, just on the grossness scale, like how gross is it?
Well, I view a Neanderthal as different. I think that has moral worth, as from what the sentiment that I got, as in someone like Ryan does not see them as having moral worth, and so I would view that as a moral transgression. And so it's both.
But if we're not talking about morals, if we just talk about how gross it is, if it weren't a moral birth, let's say it wasn't a moral birth, would you think it's gross to eat them?
Yeah, but the grossness is amplified by I view it as immoral. It's like, well, yeah, this is, but
okay.
like, as in the grossness is amplified with you.
It would take out the moral birth part. If that's not even a consideration. Let's say you don't think that it's like a moral birth or whatever. Okay, just on a scale of like 0 to 10, like how gross would be eating like 1 a fetus and then 2 just like another like a Neanderthal human hybrid person, like early hybrid.
What about a corpse?
You know, somebody in the chat makes a good point. What if you were married to Bill Clinton?
I
If
don't
you
know
were
what-
married to Bill
I
Clinton,
don't know. I
would
don't-
you find it more or less gross?
I'm not sure I understand exactly the hypothetical. What, I might be just too interested. How does Bill Clinton play into
Would
it?
you eat the would you eat the fetuses?
What's the connection to Bill Clinton? Am I just lost?
I don't really know. I thought it was a good
Okay.
question.
Oh no.
All right.
Okay. It's gang. Okay.
Um,
Okay.
It's
So-
time to sing happy birthday to Wick. All of
Yes,
us are going to
yes.
sing it at the same time, okay? On the count of 3, okay? 1, 2, 3. Happy,
Happy
birthday
birthday to you.
Happy
birthday to you.
Happy
Happy
birthday,
birthday, dear
dear
Wick.
Wick.
Happy
Happy
birthday to
to
you.
you.
I wouldn't eat you because it would be gross.
What are you trying to say? Okay. Anyway, well, thank you. I do appreciate you. I do. Look, and I will be real. Thank you to the chatters and the donators who've wished me happy birthday, who've given me birthday money. I do appreciate it a lot. Thank you, and thank you Stardust for the thumbnail, and thank you for coming to sing to me. I
Yeah,
do
of course. I
appreciate
thought you were going to do better marketing for yourself with that thumbnail. Dude, you got to really work
Fine.
on your Twitter game, okay?
I'm not good at the marketing game. I'll give you that.
You got to tweet. You got to tweet out. You come to me on the day of my daughter's wedding, and it's my birthday. And then you put the picture up, and then you put the link to your stream. That's how it works. Okay, you just go as the cheesier the better. Honestly,
Fair
so
enough.
yeah.
Fair enough.
Recommendation: either having another thumbnail that you can put up, or putting an ending card to the thumbnail at the end of the video. And it's one of the South Park memes of the guy snapping a fetus's neck and sucking out the vertebrae, like in South Park.
I don't remember that, but
It's
been a while.
the Superman character, how he was able to walk again. He was eating
Oh.
fetuses.
Oh, are we talking about like stem cells and shit?
Yeah,
Is that a joke
yeah.
on that? Well,
Because
let me get.
eating.
Well, yeah, let me get a question for you guys. How do you think the discussion went for those who watched it? Like, do you think that the shrimp welfare guys succeeded in their quest here?
I think they could have been more aggressive.
Corey is telling them to be more aggressive. Wow. Okay.
Well, I haven't gone through, all my hypotheticals. I just posed, and I'd say your answers were unsatisfying in terms of like my Neanderthal scenario. Like, you wouldn't eat it because it would come from a human. But if we can Jurassic Park a Neanderthal, okay, like we have their DNA, you would potentially eat that.
Potentially, yes. Well, I think. Hold on. I think if you can interbreed with a human, I count you as human adjacent enough not to eat. Like if
Okay.
you fucking a human resulted in a
I feel like you
baby,
guys are really missing out on the gross conversation. Like, do you think it's gross or not? That's the real question.
I don't know what a Neanderthal looks like.
They look like a humanoid.
Well, I think shrimp are gross, but even when I wasn't vegan, I didn't eat shrimp because I thought they were gross.
Yeah, well,
Exactly.
I think all seafood is gross, personally.
yeah, I guess it depends how you cook them. I think the biggest issue that they had during this entire debate is that they try to approach something from a highly intellectualized facet, like somebody who has an autistic fixation on a certain topic, and then extrapolated everything to make that topic mean something to somebody else who goes, yeah, but I don't really care about shrimp. And that's where it failed immediately, because if the moral justification for ending shrimp suffering is that like caring about them, and half the audience or most of the audience, for the sake of the conversation, doesn't care about shrimp suffering, then they fail. Because one, they say that shrimp have some type of pain sensory. Well, they haven't really proved that. And plants have sensory, but they don't care about plants. Insects, bugs, bacteria, they all have senses to a certain degree. And they're saying that they didn't care about those things. So why are we stopping at the scale of shrimp now for our moral consideration? I think this is just a moral of convenience.
that we've reached a certain point in comfortability in life that throwing $1 is a moral convenience. Basically, is what they're asking for.
Well, I think I'm not going to speak for Bentham's Bulldog, but I think they were backing it up of like shrimp feel pain. It's not just stimulus like a plant or bacteria. Like there is some sort of actual sensory experience. There is something to be like a shrimp. Obviously, it's difficult to imagine, maybe almost impossible, but there appears to be some. I think they would make the argument that there is some sort of subjective experience as opposed to a plant. There's nothing to be like a plant, so to speak.
So, for example, we have certain animals that when they sense pressure on themselves, they run. They don't really. We know for a fact that certain lizards don't have the sensation of pain. They just their nervous system is just too. I don't say like.
I would question that claim from what I know. But also, what I would pose, even though I'm on their side, I would pose to Nonfon and Bentham's Bulldog, again, bring in technology. If we get to the point of we can genetically engineer shrimp to not feel pain, can we just mass slaughter as much as possible? Because they should fundraise for that in terms of because the technology is technically there.
Well, that's what if I understand it correctly, that's what the Shrimp Welfare Project is they're not saving the shrimp from dying. They're just anesthetizing them before they die.
Well, yeah, but I don't know exactly how they want to implement it, but it's better just like to genetically engineer a species of shrimp that they're just not going to feel. And I'm curious if that would overlap of like if you can genetically engineer cows to not feel pain, which we hypothetically could.
Okay, so let's say we can't stop people from becoming violent criminals later on in life, but we can genetically engineer it so that if people become violent criminals later on into adulthood, they can't feel pain. So then when we inevitably execute them, then it's kind of humane in a way, right?
I mean,
if you basically you're putting in some kind of mechanism so that triggers once they've done a violent crime, and once that mechanism triggers, they are no longer able to feel the sensation of pain
or fear, for that matter, because you have mental distress too. So you just Xing out all of that.
Well, I would say if we're getting to that level of
super soldiers,
of genetic engineering, we can
just
probably
making it more effective. Start. That's what are you doing? Like.
No. I'm saying
they feel no pain nor fear. They sound like Space Marines from Warhammer.
We can't. Let's say we can't stop like future criminals, and I'm only talking about violent criminals. I'm not talking about somebody lifting a candy bar. Okay, I'm talking about somebody who kills somebody, or somebody who rapes and kills somebody, or somebody who rapes and kills and like 2 people. Okay, or more. So just had to specify there, by the way. So let's say we can't really like prevent those people from ever being born, but we can like somehow engineer a way that if they're born and they become that, then they don't feel pain like other humans do, and then we could just easily execute them because it would be humane. They wouldn't feel any pain or fear. Yeah. So
I don't know. I think that's a little.
Wait, people are saying it's a Nazi. It's a Nazi experiment? No. I'm not doing a Nazi experiment. I'm saying if the Nazis would be people who would actually fall under this category, right? Because they did violent,
experiment to
horrible
the Nazis.
things. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
And then as soon as they took part in the Nazi stuff, as soon as they took part in their Nazi shit, then they no longer feel pain and fear. Well, I mean, maybe they didn't already, but and then we could just execute them.
So,
better off for society.
So, for example, we already do stuff like this for cows to make the killing and butchering of them less evil in our eyes, with one of the bullet hammer things that we utilize to kill them instantly without pain. The problem is when it comes to, well, we grow them, we raise them, we fundamentally can understand how a mammal experiences life. It's relatively easy to watch it happen. For shrimps, the entire existence of a shrimp, they have just assumed that it's like a human, and that's what they care about. The assumed human-like qualities of a shrimp that they don't have access to. and they're asking everybody else to pretend that they have that stuff. And I think that's where they fail.
Well, but I think they're using shrimp as an example of like it plays with our intuitions of like I think there's good reasons to believe that, let's say, octopus, they have, you know, a complex world, I would say.
Yeah.
And I think most people now recognize much more complex than shrimp. But it's like I'm sure, I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure Nonfon and Bentham's Bulldog would advocate for pretty much like not consuming them and for their welfare, even though octopus look pretty alien, I would say, to most people. But it's pretty clear that there's something. Well, exactly. But that should stand out to you as like you don't seem like there's clearly something there, and in fact, you know, their intelligence is, well, as we learn more and more about them,
makes
the more
them more delicious. Like the more intelligent they are, the more delicious they are, the more tasty they are. Like I think that something that Ryan said is actually an interesting thought experiment. Or not thought experiment really, but it resonated with me. If I could develop a way to make the most delicious tasting food in the world, the most delicious tasting shrimp, okay? And this shrimp, whoever tasted it, it's just so fulfilling. It gives so many nutrients, and it's just the taste is just out of this world. It's the hands down the best food you've ever tasted. But in order to do that, I had to increase tenfold the suffering of shrimp. I had to make sure that they suffered 10 times what they do now in the process. I'd have no time. I would do it. I'd press that button. I'd be like, okay, let's do it that way. It's tasty.
I mean, we you know, as humans eat pigs, right? And pigs are supposed to be very intelligent animals. So,
Mhm.
and they say that
bacon is delicious.
Apparently.
Are we saying that
humans apparently taste like pig as well? Apparently, so yeah.
Yes, though from the, was it Vice? Whoever that guy, Jeunesse D'Souza or whatever the fuck his name was, going to the cannibal tribes and asking them all these questions, where it's basically human evolution to dislike eating human because it tastes bad. That's why we don't like the taste of blood.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that holds true for everybody out there.
Well, yes, people with genetic diseases that love the taste of blood, but we're not talking about those niche individuals.
I don't know how. I don't know really.
I don't know that article or whatever video you're talking about, but I'm not surprised. I mean, I was watching this thing about chimpanzees, and this is apparently a thing that is occurring in a lot of mammals, where there's this like innate thing where if you grow up with somebody, you have something inside you makes you not want to breed with that person, even if you're not genetically related. And so that ends up being a pretty good like protector for us like inbreeding a whole lot, because you know in general, like it's something that we just are averse to. We just don't see each other if we've grown up together as siblings. We don't see each other that way. Unfortunately, they do have an issue where like these separated biological relatives, they reunite, and they don't have that thing built in because they didn't grow up together. And then apparently it happens much more common than you would think, that you know these relatives who didn't know each other, didn't know they were relatives, end up like connecting on a really deep level and like sleeping together. It's crazy. So
well, yeah, 23andMe and Ancestry.com have uncovered, you know, many unfortunate cases.
To clarify, it was Reza Aslan ate human brains on live television.
Well, so then, Wick, does the hypothetical work in reverse of like, if we can engineer a human that tastes, you know, the best food in the world, but we've engineered them also that they feel no pain, are we then now justified? Human. But yeah, but what?
I wouldn't want to eat them.
But again, then it goes back to my Neanderthal of like, what is it? And also like an individual Down syndrome. They don't qualify that they're an evolutionary dead end.
Down syndrome is still human. Yes.
Then you're to use the biology argument.
To me, this is what I'm including in the term human. A human to me is anyone that is born from another human, or when having sex with a human is able to create a viable pregnancy.
So when we get to artificial wombs, there's no humans anymore?
No, there still is, because had we not have artificial wombs, we would still be able to naturally impregnate.
Oh yeah, but the ones who like from egg to full whatever to term in an artificial womb, does that not qualify?
No, that still comes from humans, because those eggs and that sperm come from a human.
Human DNA.
Yep.
Yeah, but they're not. But you seem to, from what I understood, like the birth part of it seems to be critical for you.
No. If that whole process takes place in a womb that is separate from a human body, that's fine. They're still a product of human DNA. They're still a product of human a sperm
so
and a human egg. Right?
That's the crux of it.
Yeah. There is a I forgot which culture it is, but there is one of these cultures where women right after they've given birth, women after they give birth in general, they will expel the placenta afterwards. And there is a culture, I forgot which culture it is, where they will actually take the placenta home with them, they'll cook it, they'll make a stew out of it, and then the woman who was just pregnant, who now has given birth, will eat the placenta. So there is that, I guess.
Yeah,
I
put
thought
that
that
as.
was. I thought Americans, very few of them also do that, and it's really weird.
It might
Sure,
be.
but that's
Let me
not.
see
Look,
which
a
ones-
placenta isn't a human. Like I don't know
It's
why
human
this is
DNA.
hard for you to understand, Corey. I really
It
don't.
is human DNA.
If I
Because
can have if I can have sex with it and it can result in
You can
sex
have
with the
sex with
female
an egg.
version of it, and it will result in a pregnancy, right? Or it could, if again all the normatives were followed, there wasn't some kind of mutation or something. Then it counts as a human to me. So if aliens came down, okay, if aliens from another planet came down and we could have sex with them and have babies, they would be adopted into my definition of human. Does that make sense?
Apparently, it's in Chinese medicine, by the way, that they do that. Yeah.
It makes sense, but again,
Or if it comes from human, if it was spawned from human, right?
Sure, but that at the end of the day, you are going to ground it in a DNA sequence, and I would say there's nothing inherent in a DNA sequence, especially when we get to the world of genetic engineering. We're going to get to a very strange place of like what qualifies as human or what doesn't qualify as human. If you're just putting it to the nucleotide sequence, I would say there's no foundation there, especially when you seem to grant that a human Neanderthal hybrid now counts, but then why does it count? And then again,
because if fuck it, I could have a viable pregnancy from.
Okay, Wick. Here's another one. Here's another one. Somebody voluntarily, let's say it's one of these freaks who's like gets off on being an amputee. Okay, they voluntarily amputate one of their arms. Okay, you technically can't reproduce with the arm. And they're like, yeah, you can eat it. I don't want it. Will you eat it?
It is spawned from a human, so it counts.
Okay, but then so has the placenta.
Okay, I wouldn't eat a placenta.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have an issue other people doing it, do you?
Not really.
Okay, that's that. I would have an issue with other people eating placentas.
What about people eating arms?
Yeah.
Only because an arm isn't an arm is a fundamentally different thing, and I would have a.
Yeah, but the person voluntarily.
I don't care.
They did it
don't. Consent. Hold on. Consent isn't the highest virtue that I hold. It isn't the highest consideration that I hold. Like, for example, if you wanted to voluntarily throw yourself off a building, I would stop you from doing that, even though it was violating your consent. Technically, I would violate your consent, Stardust. I would violate your bodily autonomy by keeping you from jumping off a cliff. I would physically stop you from doing that.
But they're living their dream life by amputating their own arm.
I don't care.
And they just want you to have their arm.
I don't care.
You wouldn't eat it still? And
No.
and they could guarantee that it was going to be like the best cut of meat that you would ever eat.
I would, again, it spawned from a human. Whether they give it to me voluntarily or not, doesn't matter.
So then...
jerked off onto it first and then gave it to you.
They jerked off onto it first?
Sorry, I don't know why I said
there's
that.
a Japanese... Hold on, there's a Japanese restaurant.
Never mind.
This actually exists. There's a Japanese restaurant that you could go to, okay? You pay, it's like $5,000 a plate. It's like some ungodly sum where you could choose a chicken, a dog, or there's one other animal, I forget. But they let you have sex with that, and then they'll cook it and prepare it for you. Yeah.
Why do you know about
gross.
this?
I heard it on the radio like years ago.
Ew.
What radio do you listen to that tells you about this?
It was one of those morning radio shows. It was when I was in the military.
What morning radio show do you listen to that tells you about these things?
I told you I don't
Oh,
remember
dude,
the name
morning
of it. It
radio
was
shows
in
are
the
all
military.
they're
We were
all
driving
like
around.
that. They go off
Convenient.
rails, dude. No, I'm telling
No.
you, morning radio shows,
Well, hold up.
especially on FM, okay? They used to be crazy. They're all trying to be Howard Stern.
That's fair. All right, so I got a question, Wick.
ahead.
This will fundamentally show whether or not you like care about whether or not human DNA or whatever matters. Do you spit or swallow?
I don't suck dick. I don't know. Neither.
How do you neither? Oh, you let it go on your face. Gotcha.
Well, I do. It's never been a situation I've had to contend with.
Damn.
Okay, but if
Now
you
I don't
have
mind.
to, if you-
I don't mind. I would
if you were
prefer.
in this
I prefer
situation-
swallow if the other person is doing it, right?
Okay, but if
Yeah,
you were
but
in
that's
this
human
situation
But that's
DNA.
where
less
you're receiving-
mess to clean up, right?
That's
Okay,
human
but
DNA.
I'm asking, yes, and I'm also asking Wick.
Hmm.
That's a very good point, Artemis. I'm also asking Wick if you were in the situation. Okay, if you were in the situation and you had to choose either swallow or spit,
I'd spit
okay,
that shit
what
out.
would you choose?
Spit it out.
If they whipped out $20,
You're gonna have to whip out way more than $20, buddy. Okay,
$20 is $20.
way more than $20.
Already there.
Well,
My
here's the
price
problem.
is
Now you're saying there's a
significantly
price.
higher. No, there
So now
is
you're
a
saying
price.
there is a price.
There is a
Okay.
price where I would do something I would normally not want to do, right, and degrade myself. But that price is not $20. That price is significantly higher.
Okay,
Uh,
but
Honest. Go ahead.
not
Artemis.
$21
no.
either,
Go ahead.
so-
I already got my joke point out of the way, so go ahead.
On a maybe slightly more serious note, in the world that when we get to lab grown meat, are you opposed to like lab grown human meat?
No.
Okay.
Not
I
necessarily.
would be.
Like if you lab grown like a human liver, okay, if in a lab, and you cooked it and prepared it and put it before me, I'd try it just because I'm curious, right? But that, while it contains human DNA, perhaps it was never going to be a fully sentient thing. It was just it's just meat, right?
I used to ask these questions when I used to run panel shows. I don't know if you remember, Wick. I would
Oh,
ask.
I
really fun
remember.
questions with the lab grown meat.
I remember.
Yeah. Good stuff. Disembodied. Okay, here's the thing, Wick. Okay, somebody decides to grow a lab grown meat off of their own DNA, right? And then they're one of those freaks again who gets off to it. And they're like, "Hey, I want you to eat this. It's my DNA. Would you eat it?"
I wouldn't want freaks to get that kind of pleasure, so no. They're freaks.
Wow.
Very judgmental of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
What if it was okay, here's another question, okay? What if it was like their dick, okay? What if it was their dick? And they're like, "This is my dick. I grew a disembodied dick off of my own DNA." And then they gave it to you.
And added on top of that, since it's engineered, okay, going back to the scenario, this is engineered to be like the best tasting, like ever, the best.
And
Best
also
tasting
also they want you to bang it first too. They want you to bang it first.
Okay.
Because you
I'm not
can't-
including that, but
You
Okay.
can't ask consent
Hey,
from a disembodied penis, okay? I'm just letting you know. You can't. Would
Let
you
me-
do it?
I'm not. I don't fuck dick. No, I don't
Okay.
do that.
Okay. What if it's a butt or
A butt? It's just a butt. You want
yeah,
me to eat
disembodied,
ass?
just a butt by itself.
What if
Would,
it was
would you bang it? Would you bang it? You can't ask consent from a disembodied butt. It's just a butt by itself.
Hold on. Okay, I'm only gonna do this because it's my birthday. Okay, and
Uh-huh.
I don't normally tell. Like, I
You don't
get no
have to.
pleasure. I get no satisfaction if there isn't a sentient being at the other end of what I'm doing. Okay, so that butt not being sentient is be like, okay, whatever, it's nothing. Right?
Oh, so then you want this butt to be sentient for you
and
to
then eat
have
it.
to- Then
I wouldn't eat
and
it.
you bang
It would if it was sentient. I don't eat it.
Okay. Question. So let's frame it differently. Okay. Nothing about having sex with the meat. That's Stardust question and stuff. So what if they, like Corey said, they have
I'm thinking it.
like meat scaffolding technology, and they created out of cow meat, like wagyu, a human body, but it's all cow DNA. Would you cut it and eat it?
I'd eat it. Why not?
And it's almost like literally indistinguishable from human.
But I would know for 100% sure that it wasn't human. It was
Mhm.
cow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd eat it.
Okay.
Okay, what if the butt was sentient? Just not
Well, hold on.
sentient
If
like
someone
human?
made a perfect replica of me, but it was cake
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
it was frosting and stuff, yeah, I'd eat that. Why wouldn't I? Just because it looks like human doesn't mean it is human.
Okay. So what if they made an entirety of a cow DNA and everything in the form of a human, but they made it awake and it was alive? Would you butcher it and eat it?
But it was still a cow.
Does it go
Like it had a
moo?
cow
Yeah, but it was still a cow.
brain.
But it got up, walked
It had a
around,
cow
like it would pick up
brain.
stuff. Yeah, it would just pick up stuff with its hands.
Yeah,
and
then
eat
what? I
grass
wouldn't say it
sometimes.
was a human. And so, yes, I would eat it.
It'll go
So
moo.
how close do we need to get in mannerisms before you decide? Okay, this is a
Again,
little fucked up.
Here's the thing. My test, the Wick test.
Uh-huh.
Does it spawn from a human? Okay. In
Mhm.
some way, shape, or form. Or if I have sex with it, will it potentially result in a viable pregnancy?
Okay.
So-
So we give it a hysterectomy first, is what you're saying.
You know what I mean, without any alteration, right? Like, or in the female of the species. Obviously, if it was a man and I had sex with it, there would be never, and doesn't mean I can eat men, right? But you know what I mean? Like, yeah, if the cow in a human body, if I could impregnate that cow in a human body, and it would result in a viable pregnancy, then it would be immoral for me to eat that cow.
It would just be, if I'm understanding this correctly, it would be a cow. It would cow DNA, but it was like somehow engineered to be like look like a human and walk on two legs like a human and everything else like a human. It just is cow DNA. I mean, it's a good question because you probably you couldn't reproduce with it, but then what about like just a really dumb woman who you can't reproduce with?
That would be potentially an individual with Down syndrome.
Yeah, but they again,
We
they're
wrapped it back
spawned from
around,
human.
guys. We
They're
did it.
born of a human. And they're still human.
Down syndrome people
So
are very-
so presumably, no matter how far we progress, like a robot will never have any consideration for you, even if we get to like whatever, be able to simulate. I'm not saying that we could. I'm
Clankers
ignorant
will
on
never
that thing.
replace us.
Okay.
Pardon me.
Clankers will never replace us.
Okay. All right.
Let's change it up. How far into intelligence would you go for a primate that knows sign language and it can explain its life story and fears through sign language to you? Would you be willing to eat it?
Yeah.
Can
Just
you
yes.
imagine?
It doesn't matter.
This
It's not
monkey
human.
is signing to you. Please, sir. I have
kids.
I have kids.
You're just a monkey.
This is so
Anyway.
you need all the apes in the Planet of the Apes films.
Yeah.
Not
That's what I'm
all of
hearing.
them. I mean, like, but I wouldn't have a big enough stomach.
I mean,
on a
give it
long
time.
enough timeline. Yeah.
I mean, sure, why not? They're not human.
You
They aren't
might have
human.
missed the point of the movie.
Okay,
Maybe.
I can't.
Maybe.
They're just. I'm a human supremacist. I don't know what to tell you.
I don't. You're
No,
clear.
I respect it. I was just so my issue is that a lot of these things are like instinctual rather than intellectually thought out moral. Like disgust is a instinctual reaction,
Yeah,
not
it's
a
gross.
moral consideration
Yeah, if
that
they're
is
not
thought
tasty, I wouldn't eat them. Like it was tasty. If there was like a gorilla could probably kill me, so I probably wouldn't try to eat it just for my own
about.
safety.
You want to get its
right?
strength, right? You got to eat the warrior you defeated to get its strength. That's what I've
Tear out
heard.
its heart and just devour
Yeah.
it.
But yeah, I can fathom a world in whatever. I don't know if it's possible, but whatever. In 100 years of like there's some sort of robot or like again Blade Runner, some sort of replicant of like they might have some worth that is worth considering. Maybe. But if that's where your line is, then
I mean,
That's the
look,
point. Okay, what if we took the lab-grown human, right? Lab-grown human, but it's not a human. Let's say it's like an artificial intelligence, but it's like some sort of
So we
synthetic
installed
meat that we've
rock.
grown.
So we synthetically.
well, no, that you
grow
got to
a
eat. If it's
human.
croc, you could eat it right away.
Okay, but we put
Grok would
Grok
probably be into
on
it,
it
though.
or a learning language,
Grok would
ChatGPT,
probably
and it
be
was
into it.
ran by
And
ChatGPT.
Grok would probably tell you right before you're eating it, it's like fantasies of how it's going to destroy you in the bedroom or something. It would be really
That's true.
weird.
I'm not Will Stancil,
but-
so no, it would not. Okay, I'm not
That's
Will
true.
Stancil. Not all white guys look the same. If I
What
was
if
Will
it-
Stancil, Oh boy.
What if Grok brought up your browser history right before you start eating it? What would you do?
I would ignore. I know my browser history. I would be like, okay, well now
I'm sure a lot of
now
people
I
do.
have to eat you, so the secret can't escape, right? Like,
Okay, but real talk. We've got an AI. We've got ChatGPT, some evolved version of ChatGPT. It's really intelligent, but it's been given a synthetic body, synthetic meat body. Okay, and we've discovered we can eat its body too. Would you consider eating it?
yeah.
Okay.
I
It's
probably
not
have issues with
human.
that.
It's
My
not
point
human.
stands,
Okay.
Is it gross or is it not gross? Right? And if it's
Is it
gross, then I
tasty?
wouldn't do it. But it could be. It's lab grown meat or
I
whatever,
don't
you
know.
know.
It's not human. It gets
Okay,
the
what if it's lab
yummies.
grown human meat? It's lab grown human meat, and it's got the intelligence of like the AI.
Yeah, but it's
in it.
AI. It's not human. It's AI.
But it's like, please, sir, I have an imaginary family and children.
No, you don't. You're AI. You get eaten. You get in my belly.
Maybe it does.
Okay, nom nom
Maybe it does
nom.
have. I don't know. Maybe
Okay.
they have social groups by then. You know, these AIs. You know.
Okay, well, how about let's change it up a little bit. Say there's 100.
First of all,
Uh,
before you go, gang, if you don't give me $100 in the next 10 minutes, I will end the stream. Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay, say there's 100 entities in a room. 99 of them are made out of this fake meat thing, but you can't tell. They all have roughly the same amount of intelligence, but 99 of them are artificial. Would you? And you don't have any tools to figure out which one is the wrong or the right human.
Which one's human? Which one's not?
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell, then I would abstain because I couldn't tell. There's a
Okay, then
potential-
why are you eating any consumer-related item of food in the current industry? Because there's a maximum amount of human DNA allowed in each product.
Okay, but those aren't entire humans, right? Like if an
Sure.
accident, if there is a percentage chance that someone's finger meat because they were like get sliced off in the slinger and it happens to be in my
Mhm.
burger, that's a risk I'm willing to take. Okay,
Poor
but
guy, by the way.
that's a different thing than saying there's a whole ass human and you're gonna eat that whole ass human. Okay, yeah, it's just fundamentally different, and it's one's by accident, right? Like I don't go
Okay.
out intending to consume, right?
I want to distill as best I can where your line is, or attempt to push you to the limit. So,
Please.
if you're on a deserted island, not even you, okay, another person. I'm just curious how you morally evaluate this situation.
Stardust.
Okay?
Stardust is on the this
Sure.
deserted island. She's
Okay.
been deported, right? Trump thought she was an
whoa.
illegal alien and sent her to
Or
a
he didn't
deserted
care.
island.
And so I don't know if you bite the bullet like Lactoid does of sex with animals. Do you bite that bullet, Wick?
What does this have to do with Stardust on a deserted island?
No, I'm just.
I know. I would
sex-
not have sex with animals.
Yeah, but you don't see it. You don't view it as a moral
I do think
transgression.
it's immoral.
Why?
I think it hurts the person doing it. I think it makes you worse as a person. It hurts your soul to have sex with an animal. It's a degrading thing. It lowers your humanity. That's why it's wrong. Not because it hurts the animal.
Wait. So killing it, but does killing an animal hurt your soul?
If you do it for fun, yeah.
Okay.
I'm kind of confused as to how I entered. How am I related to?
Oh
this
no, I'm
equation?
just trying to flesh out. I will include you in a second since
Okay,
Wick
okay, sure.
Wick was adamant on it. Okay. That's curious to me. Killing it. So, what is worse to you in your mind, killing a dog or having sex with a dog?
I wouldn't do either, but I think that which is worse. It's like asking me which is worse, killing a baby or killing an adult. I mean, both are bad. I mean, one might technically be worse than the other, but I don't think that I would do either. So I don't know. I'd have to think about that more. But regardless,
But if someone's
morally
killing,
detestable.
okay, but if someone's killing a dog for food, that's not hurting your soul.
Well,
in your
if
mind?
they're doing it for food, yeah, that's fine. I don't think it's immoral at all. They have to
So
eat.
I'm curious. So now bring in Stardust. Okay, let's say Stardust is deported. She's on that desert island, and now she has access. Okay, she has access to a lifetime supply of choose your meal replacement, Soylent. Okay, and all the water.
Is this a fuck, marry, kill with like a?
But then there's one
dog?
dog, and she goes right to the dog, and she pretty much day one, even though she has a lifetime
Is
supply of
this
Soylent.
racist? Why are we?
She kills and eats the dog. Is that a moral transgression to you?
Jesus.
I mean, is she doing it to eat for food?
Yeah, to eat. Yeah, as in,
yeah, I don't think
despite
that's necessarily. I don't think
despite
that's,
the lifetime supply of Soylent, she's like, well, I just prefer killing and eating the dog.
No, I don't think she's done anything terribly morally wrong.
Just
that-
so you know, Chad,
that
I
is the
would never
fundamental.
do this. Okay. I'm a vegetarian actually.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, so
But,
this is good.
I would view that as a moral transgression, as in like, yes, if you have the alternative, you have a lifetime supply of the alternative, and you can survive, and you just go right to the dog.
Unless the
Just-
dog is trying to
just-
attack me and eat me. Somebody brought
Yeah.
a good point. If it's a dog or eat dog world,
What-
then I'm eating
Sure,
the dog.
but that holds true with self-defense in humans. So like,
Yeah.
we carve out that exception of the humans coming to
I
attack
think I
you.
have a really good
Yeah.
question. I think I have a really good question for Wick here. Okay, Wick. Okay. Just like Artemis brought up this hypothetical where you got like cow DNA, but it's shaped into a human, right? Now, let's say we take a human, okay? It's human DNA. Let's say they're just not, they're not very smart though. But they're human DNA and we've genetically engineered them to take the form of a cow, okay? And they're just really not smart. They're really, really dumb.
But they're human.
They're human, but they look like a cow and they act like a cow for the most part, with the exception of the kill me every few minutes, you know. And they eat grass and stuff and they hang out in the pasture. Would you eat the cow?
No,
Human.
because it's a human.
Really? You're just gonna let him be there eating grass and saying
Kill
kill me
me.
every few minutes?
Well,
Yeah.
if he wants to die, then that's a different question. I wouldn't eat him.
Did he cut out for anybody but me?
Yeah, he cut out.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're being
He cut out.
censored.
Oh, hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
now
can
you're
hear
back.
you now.
Oh, yeah, no, I wouldn't eat him. I would, even if you wanted to eat him, I would be no, guy, I'm not going to eat you.
Okay, so you're on a deserted island. You have a human that is a human, looks like a human, or you have the human that's shaped like a cow, and you are starving.
And I have to eat it, or I die.
If you have to choose something to eat.
Sorry, cow human. You're the one. You're the one. Just because
Oh man.
you're probably easier to kill, first of all. And
And then the
second of
cow
all, you're
human is
probably
like,
going to have
no,
more
please,
of you,
sir,
so
I
you'll
have a
last
wife. I've
longer.
Yeah.
Alright.
Yeah, but the cow human is also saying no. Yeah, like sorry, says he's pleading with you in
Yeah.
his very low intellectual state. Has a wife and kids and everything.
Sorry, dude. It's me or you, and you have to go.
And
Sorry.
even the human is like, yeah, I don't have wife and kids. Fuck that. I'm living my, Andrew Tate life, you know?
Oh, if he's a bad person, like if he goes around raping women, then I would eat him instead.
Well, what if he
hasn't-
looks like he
hasn't
can fight
raped
you though?
anybody yet. He hasn't raped anybody
But he
yet,
says
but he
he's going to.
aspires. He aspires to
Then
be
yeah,
like
that
Andrew
guy gets
Tate.
eaten. He gets eaten.
And you leave the cow human alone?
Yeah, there's
I
nothing
mean,
for the cow human to eat.
assuming
though.
I don't get rescued, I'd eventually have to eat it too.
Wow.
Mm.
Well, yeah, because I want to survive, right? Like-
And Artemis, do you answer the same way as Wick in my scenario of like a lifetime supply of meal replacement versus a dog? Do you view that as moral transgression?
It depends on how far into the state of starvation you go. There's at least a.
Well, yeah, I'm saying on day one, and also you technically don't have to starve. You have a lifetime supply of meal replacement, right?
It really depends. If it's catered to me, yeah, I mean the lifetime supply of meal replacement is fine, but psychologically humans will eventually break in isolation and desire something else to eat. But yeah, no, day one, no, I don't think it's acceptable to eat the dog on day one. There's no action required there. You're not starving to death. There's no imperative that is threatening you in any way, shape, or form to take that action.
Now,
and-
I will say
and-
this. I will say this. I might let them eat me instead if I had any kind of emotional care, like if it was my significant other or something, or if it was someone like who would cure cancer or something like that. I might.
I have another thing to bring into the cow and the human. Okay, so the cow human, he's like, moo, please, my wife. my wife, he's like that. But then you've got the human who maybe he's not an aspirational rapist, but he does really like Andrew Tate. And he thinks that Andrew Tate didn't rape anybody, and he might not like rape somebody, but he's definitely very pushy.
I don't.
Like really uncomfortably pushy.
So he's kind of
about
like a
it.
douche.
If he
basically.
annoys me,
Yeah,
yes.
he's a douche, he just,
Hold
like,
on.
he kinda
I want to
wears
make
you
this
down.
clear. He
He's
could be a
tired.
a
He
normal
cuts out.
person, but if he's just a snarky in my chat, right? If one of the
Mhm.
chatters who is always annoying me.
Well, no, I'm saying. Okay,
Hold on.
okay.
If
I'm
I had
just
one of the
saying-
chatters in my chat right now who was always annoying me, okay, who's always being like, "Oh,
Yeah.
Wick, you're so wrong," and I had to choose between eating them and eating the cow man, I'd eat the chatter.
Really? Okay.
'Cause they're
that
annoying
makes sense. So
me.
then the pushy guy.
What if that chatter donated
Who you get
$1?
to crack open a beer
Oh,
with? He
man.
might be good company. He might be better company for you than the cow human. Cow human just moves and says, "My wife,"
I'm
Yeah.
not here to have company with you. Look, that the cow human that just says "moo my wife" is less
Mhm.
annoying than some of my chatters. Letting you know.
Okay, let's phrase it. Let's phrase it slightly differently. All the cow human does is say "moo, my wife and kids" over and over again. But there's no indication that this cow has actually had children.
What do you mean? What's the children have to do with it?
Because you have a person, you have an actual human on the other side that is likely to have a human life at some point, and you're gonna snuff that out. But you have this odd human cow thing that's just repeating the same words over and over.
Yeah, I don't
like
think the
fucking,
chatter that's
Full Metal
annoying me
Alchemist.
deserves it, right? Like they've annoyed
Uh-huh.
me.
I'm
And
not
again,
talking
I'm in
about
a
the chatter. I'm
situation
talking
where
about
I have
somebody
to.
who's a good company.
Hold on,
He's a
we're
good
in a
company,
situation.
except he gets really pushy. He gets really pushy with sex. That's all. And
They're
he'll wear
getting
you down,
eaten.
and when
They're
you're tired, you'll
getting.
pull it out for
They're
him.
getting eaten. I don't want them to push. I don't want the cow man to get pushed into something he doesn't want to do, right?
No, I'm talking about you and Andrew Tate aspirational bro.
That's what I'm saying. If I had to
just be
choose
really
between
pushy with
Andrew
you.
Tate, aspirational bro, and Cowman, okay, that's a
Mhm.
choice. I'm starving. I have
Yep.
to eat one. Like, so that
Yep.
moral considerations out the gate. I have to eat one to survive. And the choices before me were Andrew Tate, aspirational guy, or Cowman. I'm eating the
Mhm.
Andrew Tate, aspirational guy. Yes, he's more annoying.
Okay. So
Okay.
So take into account practicality now.
Okay, what about it?
You think you're gonna be able to fight the Andrew Tate inspirational bro?
Everybody's got to sleep.
Is there
Okay,
a
but
level of
what if you
annoyingness at which you will eat a human?
There you go.
If-
That's a good question.
Again, no, unless, right? Unless I am forced to eat a human, then which human is most annoying is the one I will pick to eat.
Oh, you're not forced to eat a human. You could just starve.
Well, I'm not going to starve.
Okay.
My life is just more valuable than unless they're my family or someone who I care about. My life is intrinsically more valuable to me than a
It's
stranger.
infinitely more valuable.
Oh,
Gotcha.
so on that desert island of like the most annoying human ever versus starvation, you would go after the most annoying human ever?
Yes, they would get eaten.
Just get eaten.
They would get eaten.
All right.
Man.
I would be doing a net good for humanity by eating them.
Okay, but what
so-
if he turned it around on you and he was like, he starts romancing you real hard, and he's like, "You'll always be my girl. Even if we get out of here, you'll be my girl."
She's still getting eaten. Why would I want?
You know
the
what?
most
Let's
annoying
switch it up. Let's
human
switch up a
ever?
little bit. It's a really attractive female, but she has some very bad opinions.
Again, if it's between that and starvation, she's getting eaten.
But the cow's not.
What? Do you, okay,
The
so
human cow is not.
again, the cow is a human too. Okay, it just looks like a cow, and yours hypothetical. If it was an actual cow, then yes, of course, the cow gets eaten first.
Yeah, I know. I understand, but for intents purposes, the thing that looks mostly like a cow, and for
And
you,
I am
everything looks like a
starving.
meal at that point. Yeah.
And I am starving, and I have to kill one to eat it.
Mhm.
Yeah, the
You'll eat the woman?
annoying woman's getting eaten. Sorry.
Clip that, chat.
This might, I don't, optically, what if it's like the most annoying child ever?
$5 from Malik
Oh,
to
that's a
say,
good
would you
question.
rather
Yeah, it
eat
is.
Trump or Hassan? Oh man.
Oh shit.
That's
I'd
a
recommend just eating Hassan at that point.
I don't know.
You don't know what
Trump's
like
got a
diseases
lot
you're
more
gonna get.
nutrition. Okay.
good
Fat,
point. Look.
fat's not nutrition.
Wait,
You gotta think
Trump,
about all the
based off his
carcinogens
diet of McDonald's and Coke.
yeah, it would be like eating a nugget.
or spray tan, or all the other cancer-causing materials that he may or may not have on his body.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think about that more. That was a tough one. I think I would have to eat Trump.
And what about
And
my
that's only
annoying
because I'm
child?
not Jewish. If I was Jewish, I would eat
What?
Hassan because he would be a bigger threat. So,
Oh, I mean that's fair, I guess.
Yeah.
What if it's what if it's a child, like a 9-year-old, and they're annoying?
oh. Then I would have a
The
harder time.
most
I might
annoying
not do that.
child.
I might not.
Why?
I might start because I value children. Like there is an intrinsic value I give children that I do not give adults.
Okay, what if this child is very like a 150 IQ, like they've
children.
graduated college already.
Oh, so they're really smart. Yeah, probably. That'd be a much more hard thing to decide. I think honestly, if I'm being honest with you guys, my hunger would win out at some point, and I would make a play. But morally, I would probably say that was an immoral act to do because you shouldn't. You should protect children over yourself. Like if I had to endanger myself to save a child, I think that to a certain extent, I would be obligated to do that. I would be obligated to put myself in a certain level of danger to save that child, assuming there's a certain level of success in saving that child.
Okay.
So this is a much more harder.
So what if you have a
question to
100% chance to successfully save Andrew Tate as a child on this island?
If I knew that they were going to be an Andrew Tate when they grew up, they're getting eaten.
The Andrew Tate.
Yeah, I'm gonna eat them. Like baby
You
Hitler.
eat the
This
child
is like
Andrew Tate.
this basically you'd eat the baby Hitler.
Yeah, I'd eat
Yeah.
the if I knew. If I knew 100% that they would become Hitler, yes, I would eat the baby Hitler. Would you not?
No, I just
You
fucking
wouldn't
get
eat
rid
the
of them.
baby Hitler.
No,
I
probably wouldn't. I would kill the child and then
So
eat
what
the,
you're saying is you would allow 6
the other
million
thing.
Jews to die.
Well,
I don't know.
I
don't
sort
know
of
how
That would be
weasel
the
into it in
result
terms
of
of-
not eating baby Hitler.
I know. I sort of weasel out in terms of, I think there's let's say a certain amount of brain damage you can inflict that they won't be able to do.
No, I would end the child, bury them with all the courtesy and honors that you can for a child, and then eat the cow-shaped human thing when I get desperate
But the
enough.
cow-shaped human thing hasn't done anything. They're not going to commit a genocide. They're just a cow human.
Yeah, but even you said eventually your hunger is going to win out.
That's why you eat the child.
Okay,
The baby Hitler in this case.
you heard it here first, Chad.
I guess so.
Wick will eat children when
If
the
I
situation
know
calls
that they're
for
going to kill 6 million Jews in the future, I'm eating that baby. It's gonna be nom 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 time. I am chomping.
So he has joined the
I'm gonna
shrimp
get some
simp.
barbecue sauce. We're gonna have some shrimp saute next to it, right? It's gonna be beautiful.
So right now your position is actually worse than the shrimp simp because he was talking about comatose babies. You're talking about like 9-year-old, children fully aware of what's going
If
on.
I know for 100% fact, right, no possibility of being wrong, that he's going to kill 6 million Jews in the future if I don't do this, yes, I'm saving the 6 million Jews. I am. Like, what? The problem with these hypotheticals and these things is we do not have a crystal ball, so we do not know for certain in the future what will happen. But if that was not the case and we did, then the answer changes. But again, we don't live in a world where we do. Anyway.
One last thing. Out of curiosity, assuming you have to eat the baby Hitler, if there was a similar movement of anesthetize the baby Hitler before you eat them, would you want to do that?
Sure, why not? I don't require it to feel pain.
Oh, that is what I'm trying to tease out. Are you looking to
I don't want to torture
maximize
it or nothing.
Okay, fair enough.
I want to save the 6 million Jews. Okay, and if I have to sacrifice a little bit of my, I don't know, I don't think it would be fun to eat the baby, right? Like it would probably gross me out. But
But you have a sense of accomplishment that you saved people.
yeah, kind of. I'd feel good about myself.
Put it on your CV.
True.
Yep.
Saved 6 million.
I
dudes.
saved somebody in a crazy situation.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if for whatever reason you like the show, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We're gonna end. I am done. I'm going to go do, I don't know, something for my birthday. The last hours that remain. And I will talk to you guys Monday. We're gonna do something, and then Tuesdays with Hutch with Wick and Tally, and then Thursday is the Econoboy versus Destiny debate on socialism versus capitalism. Tune in for that. I love you all.
That'll
Bye,
be
bye, bye.
exciting.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Wick. All the best.
Happy birthday. Bye.
Good night,
Happy
everyone.
birthday, Wick.